Hey guys, welcome to Green Bean Fiction. So in today's video we are gonna see what if Deku had arranged marriage with Momo. Part 3. Before starting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are interested in MHA fanfictions. This story is early engagement by pitch_black_night. Now without wasting any more time, let's dive in. Heigasha Hotel. In the hotel lobby, a group of kids and a 5-year-old were catching their breaths after what just happened. Let's review. Marriage, running, chase, narrowly escaping death. Somehow, they all managed to get to the reception unscathed. Physically unscathed. Against his better judgment, Izuku looked outside to see what was happening. His mother, uncle and Burnin were trying desperately to hold back Mitsuki from breaking down the doors and demanding answers from Izuku. For the brief moment their eyes met, he swore he felt death. "Need me to take her out?" Shoto asked. Izuku whipped back to face him. "No, she just needs some time to cool off." Momo came up to Izuku holding Arie in her arms. "Is Grandma okay?" she asked. Izuku held her hand reassuringly. "Don't worry, if anyone can get through the scary lady, it's Grandma. She can handle it." Arie nodded before breaking into a smile. "Did you like my surprise?" she asked eagerly. "Like it? Come here, you." Izuku picked up Arie and spun her around in a tight hug. The little snowball giggled as she was cheek to cheek with her papa. "It was incredible, Snowflake. You were so beautiful, I thought you were the bride for a second." Kyoka snickered at that comment. "Wasn't it scary having all those people looking at you?" Momo asked. Arie fiddled with her fingers. "It was scary, but I wanted to do something special for your wedding. I just tried to think about you and pretended no one else was watching." Momo and Izuku smiled warmly at their little girl's bravery, and rewarded her with hugs and kisses. "Thank you, sweetheart. You made our wedding day so much more special," Momo said. They shared a loving family hug, happy and calm in each other's embrace. Until the door was busted down. Everyone jumped as Mitsuki walked in. Izuku instinctively tightened his hold around his family while Shoto was ready to throw hot and cold hands. But something about her demeanor was odd. She still had traces of anger, but was mostly calm. Inko, Masaru and Burnin were right behind her, the pro just as ready as Shoto for a surprise attack. Everyone was tense as the Bakugo matriarch breathed in through her nose. "I sure as hell don't approve of marriage this early, especially that I was kept in the dark." Izuku flinched as she growled the last bit. She looked at Momo. "But, you're probably the best thing to happen to Izuku in a long time. I won't get in your way." The young newlyweds looked up at the blonde woman in elation. "But," she placed her hand on Momo's shoulder. The young bride was getting a sense of déjà vu as a not at all gentle pressure was applied to her shoulder. Mitsuki just gave her a sadistic closed-eye smile. "Knowing my dear nephew, there's no way he would be the one to suggest marriage so soon. Am I wrong?" Momo gulped. "And no, ma'am. And how long did you know him before proposing?" Momo started trembling. 2 days or so." Mitsuki's grip tightened, and she flashed a toothy grin. It might have been her imagination, but Momo swears her teeth were sharper than the average human. "The countless number of punishments I can think of, and could actually do to you, niece." Izuku and Momo were both trembling, and Arie had her eyes covered. Kyoka was hiding behind Shoto, who, despite his quirk flaring up on both sides, could feel an intense pressure keeping him from moving. "But, since Izuku holds you dear, I suppose I'll have to back off." Everyone seemed to relax when she released her grip on Momo's shoulder. But the pressure was soon multiplied when her smile disappeared and her red eyes were open in a petrifying glare. "But I'm warning you. Break his heart or hurt him in any way, and I will personally send you to hell. Am I understood?" Those blood-red eyes were glaring viciously into the heiress's soul. If circumstances were different, Momo would have just shook her head, too afraid of the older woman to speak. But Mitsuki's words stirred something within her, and the ravenette stood her ground against the terrifying blonde. "I can assure you, ma'am, I will never do any such thing. Izuku means the world to me, and I would walk a mile on hot coals than consider hurting him." Mitsuki saw unwavering resolve in Momo's onyx eyes, and decided to trust Izuku with her. She gave the two firm chops over their heads. "Congratulations, you stupid brats," she said before walking away. Once she had turned her back to them, they all released a heavy sigh. "What is that woman? A genuine demon." Kyoka asked. A true freak? Shoto asked. 4. The devil. Izuku confirmed. The others all shivered when he said that. Well, we've still got about 20 minutes before the reception starts and the other guests arrive. Kyoka mentioned. Oh, that reminds me. Shoto tapped his earpiece. Kido, Onima, can you pick up Fuyumi and Natsuo? We kinda ditched them earlier. Don't worry, Shoto, we went back and picked them up since we couldn't stop that blonde devil. Kido answered. Speaking of, are the bride and groom still alive? 2. Somehow, we're all still alive. See you soon, Shoto said. You gonna explain anything, James Bond? Kyoka asked. My father's sidekicks and I are here under the pretense of them showing me the ropes of guard duty. But the truth is, they're my backup to make sure my friend's big day goes off without a hitch. The bride and groom are still alive, the only threat has been neutralized, and the reception will take off on schedule. Mission accomplished. Shoto took a pair of sunglasses out of his pocket and put them on as he said that. 6. A few minutes later a limo pulled up in Momo's, and now Izuku's, parents came out. They frantically checked the couple and their daughter, relieved that they didn't sustain any injuries. Where is that brutish woman? I should press charges for what she's done. Sakuse angrily said. Izuku stopped him. Wait, it's okay. It was mostly my fault for keeping the whole thing a secret from her. Shoto added his input. I don't think we could make her leave if we wanted to. Sakuse looked at Izuku in surprise. Why would you still want her company after that madness? Izuku steeled himself. Because, father, she's family to me. Just like that, Sakuse's anger was quelled. He was reminded of the fact that he now had an ideal son-in-law. The Yayorozu patriarch sighed, giving in to Izuku's request. Very well, but one more incident from her, I understand, and thank you. The two of them went to the front desk to sign in for the hall they rented out. Meanwhile, I was hugging her granddaughter. Excellent job, sweetie, you were perfect. She praised Arie. Thank you, grandmother, Arie said. Momo realized something. So that's what the flowers were for. You two have been planning this and hiding it from us. Arie started fidgeting a bit. Sorry, Mama, we wanted to surprise you. Momo smiled and pressed her forehead against Arie's. It was a beautiful surprise, sweetheart. But maybe no big reveals for a while. I don't know how much more Papa can take. Arie nodded. I just smirked. That's an interesting statement, daughter. As if you're not planning something that makes our surprise pale in comparison. Izuku and Sasuke rejoined their close family and friends with a hotel staff member. Since we've got some time before the guests get here, why don't we go see the hall we'll have the reception in? Izuku suggested. Everyone seemed to like that idea, but Shoto raised a hand. Yes, there will be soba being catered. Izuku answered. You're my best friend, Shoto said. As they started walking, Arie tugged Shoto's sleeve. Uncle, what's soba? Shoto looked at his niece with wide eyes. Arie, have you never had soba before? The little girl shook her head. Todoroki looked at Momo and Izuku as if they were suddenly monsters. What have you savages been feeding this child? For the reception with the rest of the guests arriving, the celebration of Izuku and Momo's wedding could begin. The hall they reserved was large enough to hold over 50 people, decorated with white and gold curtains, white tables and chairs with intricately designed gold and silver tablecloths. Near the walls were caterers to serve delicious food to the guests. In the center of the room was a dance floor, right in front of the musicians playing the music. First and foremost, the guests congratulated the young couple of their union. It started well, the both of them receiving kind words and well wishes from everyone. But at some point, they were separated. Momo was being congratulated by members of her class, and Izuku was with their trophy spouses. Another one of us, huh? Welcome to being an aristocrat's arm candy. A man said, holding a glass to Izuku. They clinked, but Izuku didn't completely agree. I'd like to think I'm a little more to her than that. A woman sighed. I certainly hope she treats you well. We were all lucky enough to get married to somewhat caring spouses. Somewhat. A lot of them nodded. We're either pretty or can handle kids and chores. Our husbands and wives do things like remember anniversaries and birthdays, and take us out. But they mostly make the decisions while we make some things a little easier. Izuku thought for a moment. He still didn't know what to do with himself since becoming a hero is off the table. And he could definitely be a good parent to Arie. But Momo couldn't see him as just pretty arm candy. Looking back on all their shared experiences, he knew what they had was different from the others. Still, this conversation was a mood killer for the husband. I've tried suggesting I could get a job to at least feel like I do something, but she says, someone needs to look after the kids. Nope, we're done here. This has been fun, but I'm gonna go check on my wife. Bye, enjoy yourselves. Izuku walked away, hoping his wife was at least having fun. As soon as they got some breathing room, Momo plopped her chin on Izuku's shoulder. I've been reminded of one of the reasons you're my husband. Oh, really? Momo nodded slightly. They were mostly kind, saying nice things about you and us. But then they said I married a quirkless for the sake of image. They even compared you to a rare species I'm keeping as a pet. Can you believe it? Izuku just held Momo tightly and rubbed her back. The other spouses spoiled my mood, too. They talked like I was one of them, only good for looking pretty next to you. I don't want to sound mean or arrogant, but we've got something better than that, don't we? Momo raised her head, look into Izuku's eyes. Of course what we have is better. You're so much more than an accessory, and I can't tell you how much you mean to me. She lifted his chin and they connected lips. Izuku smiled brightly at her. You always make me feel better. Come on, let's go find Shoto before he gets Arie addicted to soba. Says the one who got her addicted to Katsuden. They both laughed. One Shoto and Arie. You can have it warm or cold, with various dipping sauces to choose from. Shoto explained to Arie while their soba was being prepared. I like warm food. Is soba good? Shoto smiled at her. It's amazing. Their caterer gave them each a bowl of soba lathered in soy sauce, chopsticks for Shoto and a fork for Arie. Arie twirled her fork in the warm noodles and put them in her mouth. She slurped up whatever was hanging out of her mouth and started chewing. How is it? Shoto asked. Arie gave him a smile. I like it. It tastes good and it's fun to slurp it. She and Shoto clinked their bowls together and enjoyed their tasty noodles. Their bonding moment was interrupted by Izuku and Momo joining them. Mama, Papa, Uncle Shoto gave me soba. It's yummy. They were too late. As the four of them ate and talked, Shoto's siblings found their little brother. They congratulated the couple of course, but had some questions for what the hell happened at the ceremony. Those questions died when Arie spoke. Uncle Shoto, are they your parents or your brother and sister? A genuine question, but her choice of words got them to stop and stare at the flower girl in shock. Just a sec. Shoto put his finished soba bowl down and dragged his siblings, who were in reboot mode, to a table for 3, and 3, 2, 1. Right on cue, they snapped back to reality. What the actual hell was that? Natsuo asked. Why did the flower girl call you uncle? Fuyumi asked. She's my best friend's daughter, so that technically makes me an uncle to her. His calm answer brought forth a new flurry of questions. That's his daughter, they shrieked. Holy shit. They have a kid. Before marriage. Even Endeavor didn't do that, Natsuo said. Don't you dare compare them to him, Shoto said with a glare. How is this even legal? Isn't your friend 15? Fuyumi asked. Well, Arie has a dangerous quirk that goes out of control when she feels overwhelmed. Since Izuku keeps her calm, it's better she stays with him. That's what the police said. The older Todorokis calmed down a bit. While it was a strange situation, they wouldn't get involved. Izuku's a great dad, though. I tried getting him with our mom, but not much luck, so far. Fuyumi and Natsuo looked at him like he had gone insane. You tried to what? They shrieked. I know our dad isn't great, or decent, but pairing our mother with someone the same age as her youngest son. Shoto still had his stoic expression. Well, they got along really well, even using each other's first names. Shoto giving out heart attacks today. Fuyumi was staring at the tablecloth, running her hands through her hair. First names. After one meeting. With a boy Shoto's age. It's insane, but if they do get along, would mom consider? Natsuo spoke up. Nope, not happening. Shoto, you're insane, and that's coming from me. Look, Midoriya's a really good guy, and I don't doubt he'd make a good father, but it'd be a seriously difficult relationship to navigate, and mom doesn't need the stress right now. Bottom line, setting your friend up with our mom was not your greatest idea. Shoto looked down as he was understanding where Natsuo was coming from. Meanwhile, Fuyumi had her mouth hanging open as this was the most sense Natsu had made in weeks. Oh my gosh, Natsuo's actually making sense. My prayers were heard after all. There is a god up there. Anime tears of joy were streaming down her cheeks, but her brothers paid it no mind. You should set him up with Fuyumi, Natsuo said, shattering Fuyumi's hopes and dreams. What? She shrieked. You're only 6 years older than him, you're smart like him and his wife, and you've got experience with small children. Fuyumi felt like breaking a chair over Natsuo's thick, hollow skull, but she was too flabbergasted to do it. Actually, he might be onto something, Shoto said. Endeavor would barely put up a fight if it's you, and I'd get to call Izuku my brother-in-law. Natsu, maybe you really are a genius. Just one flaw in your genius idea. He's married, Fuyumi screamed. Last time I checked, polygamy isn't illegal. Natsuo countered, which raised some questions about why he was informed of that. And if Midoriya likes smart girls with big breasts, you've got nothing to worry about. The only sane Todoroki slammed her head on the table. I hate my brothers. 8. Mitsuki and Masaru. In a table most of the guests stayed a safe distance away from sat Mitsuki and Masaru Bakugo. The former had to buy a new dress and flats since her old dress was dirty and her heels were smoking when she took them off. At least now, she sat calmly with a glass of sparkling water in her hand. Are you still mad? Masaru asked, earning a glare from his wife. Stupid question. Mitsuki sighed as she put down her drink. Talk, what else, besides the most important day in Izuku's life was hidden from me? There wasn't much anger in her voice, and her volume was level. It almost sounded sad. Masaru just had an image of the flower girl popping up in his head. Sweet lord, that may be an even bomb to drop, he thought, starting to sweat. Mitsuki narrowed her eyes. You're not denying that there's something else I don't know, so what is it? Poor Masaru just can't seem to catch a break. Fortunately, Izuku came up to them with a certain someone on his back. Hi. He said nervously, grabbing his aunt and uncle's attention. To be honest, I thought you two would have left after all that. There's 2 reasons we didn't, Mitsuki started. First, I get the feeling you're still not telling me everything. And second, I can't feel my legs. Izuku's sweat dropped a bit. I'm really sorry about that. About everything. I know secrets can cause stress and trust issues, so I'm going to be completely honest with you. There's someone I want you to meet. Izuku turned around and showed them the little snowball clinging to his back. The flower girl, Mitsuki asked. This is Arie, the girl I saved from the Yakuza, and my adopted daughter. Both of their eyes blew wide open. Masaru was kind of informed, but it was still surprising to hear it out loud. The snow-haired child looked at the spiky-haired duo with slight fear and anxiety. Hi scary lady, she said. Izuku, you better start explaining before I get up and choke the answers out of you. And believe me, standing up is going to be a far worse hell for me than you. Izuku shivered as Arie buried her face in his back. He explained the whole story of their time together in the hospital. How Arie saved his life with her quirk after he'd saved her from overhaul. During the story, Arie had let go of Izuku's back and kneeled on the table while holding his hand. Mitsuki and Masaru simply asked why Izuku, a 15-year-old boy, was chosen to be her unofficial guardian. Because Papa makes me happy. Arie gave her heartwarming answer. Izuku kissed her on her horn and squeezed her hand slightly tighter. Mitsuki raised her hand and gently chopped her head. Kid, you've got one of the most infuriating, reckless, yet endearing and smart people in the world taking care of you. Make sure you keep him in line. Arie nodded. And tell him the next time he keeps a secret from me, it won't be a fun time. Oh okay, scary lady. Mitsuki laughed at the nickname she was given. Oh please, call me Scary Auntie. Izuku noticed that the dance floor was starting to get crowded. This probably won't make up for everything I put you through, but, he held out his hand to his aunt. Would you like to dance? How sweet. Mitsuki gave a small smile that bared her fangs. Her eyes were closed and a vein was throbbing on her forehead. Oh, Mama sometimes makes that face when she's angry, Arie thought. Izuku, look under the table. He wanted to ask why, but he feared that would make her angrier. Not having any other option, he did as she requested. The sight he saw was like something out of a doctor's nightmare. Her legs were red, multiple veins were visible, and he dared not think about the state her feet must be in. Izuku stood back up with a look of horror on his face. "Stupid question," he said, making Mitsuki nod. Yeah, so unless you think you can carry me in your arms the whole time, it's not happening. Besides, you've already got your dance partner. I know her legs are shrimpy but at least they're usable." Izuku realized she meant Arie. He smiled at the idea and looked her daughter in the eye. "Sweetie, would you like to dance with me?" Arie's eyes were wide open. I don't know how," she admitted, but it didn't deter him. "That's okay, I'll teach you everything I know." Arie gripped her dress in contemplation. She looked at the dance floor. There were a lot of tall people, but they did look like they were having fun. And she knew her father would be with her through it. The unicorn swallowed and squeezed Izuku's hand. "Okay, let's go," she said with a brave face. Izuku smiled and carried her to the dance floor. "Okay, put one hand on my shoulder, and I'll hold your other hand," Izuku instructed. It would be bad for his back to have to bend down to Arie for a whole song, so instead he held her in his left arm and Izuku slow danced. They both smiled as they looked into each other's eyes and went with the music. Every now and then, out of the corner of his eye, Izuku saw Mitsuki's "I taught you well" face. Momo was looking for Izuku to dance with, but found him already doing it with their daughter. "Darn, she beat me to it. I never thought I'd be jealous of my own child," she thought in amusement. "Ah, there you are." Momo turned to see her mother coming up to her with a paper gift bag in her hands. "Mother, what's this?" Momo asked as she took the bag. "The surprise you planned for Izuku, and a little extra from me." Momo took out a piece of paper first and smiled fondly at it. Next was an electric key card to one of the hotel's rooms on the top floor. Finally, Momo grabbed something fabric. At first, she saw white cloth. Skimpy white cloth. She quickly put it back in the bag with a red face while I smirked at her. "You can thank me later," she said, planting a kiss on Momo's forehead before walking off. Momo peeked back into the bag, and her blush spread. "You and your surprises, mother," she thought. That was fun, Papa." Arie bounced excitedly as Izuku put her down. "Yeah, we should dance more often." Izuku chuckled. His little girl liked the sound of that. Ahem. The two of them looked to see Momo. "Arie, may I borrow your dance partner? I'd like a turn with him." Arie smiled and said, "Okay, Mama." She skipped away to find Inko. That left the bride and groom to share a dance together. Izuku held out his hand to her, which she happily accepted. Izuku's hands were on Momo's hips, and her arms were wrapped around his neck, and they slow danced to the music. "I still can't believe this is real," Izuku said in a breathy voice. "Even I find it hard to believe, strange since I was first to propose." Izuku shook his head. "Not just that, I can't believe this is my life. I have a real best friend I can depend on, an absolutely adorable daughter, and I'm officially married to the most amazing woman I've ever met. It's been one incredible blessing after another since I met you." Momo's eyes became glossy as she listened to Izuku's words. Once again, everything faded away. No other guests, no sound other than their voices and hearts that beat for one another. The sentiment is shared. Looking back now, I wasn't truly happy. Power-hungry aristocrats and greedy friends were the only connections I had besides my parents. But you were different. From the day I met you, I could tell you were something special. As if saving me in that alley wasn't enough, you didn't push me away for insinuating marriage. You even took the time and effort to build something when most others would say yes in heartbeat. The two of them looked deeply into each other's eyes as they leaned closer together. Izuku, Momo, their lips connected in a searing hot kiss. The familiar, yet explosive sensation that came from connecting lips was still an incredible feeling. It was a long, deep kiss with the two pulling each other closer subconsciously. When they separated for air, their cheeks were flushed and their eyes glimmered. "I love you." Clap, 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 asterisk. The couple didn't realize it, but in their love-induced haze, they had slow danced to the center of the dance floor, and all the other guests had made room for them. The sudden applause brought them back to reality. Both their faces turned into tomatoes, but they couldn't complain. Everything was perfect. End of the reception. As Izuku and Momo walked with their arms linked towards the hotel exit with their friends and family. With the reception over, it was time to say goodbye. Inko was saying goodbye to the Masaru and Mitsuki, who was being carried in a bridal hold due to her legs being unusable. For a moment, the young couple parted to say goodbye to who they were respectively closer to. The Greenette was saying his goodbyes to the Todorokis. "Thanks for being my bodyguard," he said to Shoto. "No problem. Sorry I couldn't do much to actually stop Mrs. Bakugo. I never imagined there'd be a demon more hellish than my father." Izuku chuckled. "Congrats on the wife, use protection," Natsu said, making Izuku blush. The trio was about to leave, but Izuku stopped them with a query. "Oh, by the way, I don't think we ever saw that ice sculpture." "It caught on fire," Natsuo quickly said, confusing Izuku. "Really? The ice sculpture caught on fire?" he asked, not fully believing it. Shoto explained. "What happened was, when I took to the sky on my left foot, it set the cover on fire." "Oh, that makes sense. Well, do you have any pictures?" No, he doesn't," Fuyumi quickly said in a dead voice. "Why are they so tense?" Izuku asked. "Oh, one more thing." Izuku looked at Fuyumi, which caused her to stiffen a bit. "Sorry, but since Arie can't go to a regular school for certain reasons, would you mind tutoring her if we ever need it? Just in case me or Momo can't for some reason, maybe once or twice a month." Before Fuyumi could answer herself, Natsuo did it for her. "She would love to. Fuyumi here is fantastic with small kids like your daughter." The Todoroki sister screamed internally in her head. "Since she's my sister, Arie would probably like her." Shoto added. "Damn you both," Fuyumi thought. "Why yeah. That's not a problem," she said reluctantly. "You two should probably exchange numbers to make planning easier." Natsu added with a grin. "I will kill you," Fuyumi thought. To her great embarrassment, that Izuku was oblivious to, they traded numbers under the pretense of being able to set up private tutoring sessions for Arie. 2. "Great. Take care." Izuku waved. "Why you, too?" Fuyumi stuttered with pink cheeks as she dragged her brothers away. Once they were all out of Izuku's earshot, Fuyumi let it out. "I'm going to kill you both." Shoto held an impassive face. "If you do, Izuku might snap and kill you. And I will drag both of you to hell with me." Luckily, the flaming sidekickers pried Fuyumi off her idiot brothers before she could murder them. 3. As they all got in the car, Shoto went in a different direction. "Where are you going?" "The car's over here," Natsuo called out to him. "I've got a different ride waiting for me," Shoto vaguely answered. Momo was saying goodbye to the Kyoka, with her parents nearby. Unfortunately, that meant Kyoka's father came up to her and warned her to not be a bad influence on his daughter. Momo promised him that she never tried to influence Kyoka, and they left it at that. Although Kyotoku was far less intimidating than Mitsuki. Just before Kyoka could leave with her parents, Kyoka called out to her. "What? I'm freezing here," the perplexed said while rubbing her exposed shoulders. The night had turned out to be much colder than the morning. "Well, Izuku and I are staying here for the night, and I think Arie would appreciate it if you're with her when she wakes up tomorrow." Kyoka smirked. But would she appreciate it as much as a little sibling? Kyoka. Momo huffed in embarrassment. "All right, where'd your folks go?" Kyoka asked. "They're on their way back with Arie already. If it's not too much trouble, you can take the car Izuku and I rode in." Momo gestured to the waiting Rolls-Royce. "Sure, as long as there's something that'll keep me warm." The punk rocker walked towards the car, not noticing Momo's mischievous smile. The driver greeted Kyoka as she stepped in, and he wasn't the only one. "Good evening," Todoroki said calmly without looking her in the eye. "What the heck, James Bond? What are you doing here?" Kyoka asked. "My name isn't James Bond, it's Shoto Todoroki. I know you're not James Bond, it was a nickname because of all the undercover shit you've been doing." 1. "Anyway, Izuku told me to take ride back to their mansion to keep an eye on Arie for him." Kyoka raised a brow. "That's what Momo told me." Well, Arie calls us uncle and auntie, so it's probably a guarantee that she'll be calm if it's both of us." Hyoka sat down, closed her door and fastened her seat belt. The driver took off. It was sort of an awkward moment for the teens, until Shoto gave her his blazer. "You look cold," he calmly stated. "What about you?" she asked, prompting him to create a small fireball in his palm. Hyoka mentally face-palmed. "Please no fires in the car, Mr. Todoroki," the driver said. "Sorry," Shoto said as he closed his palm. Hyoka took the blazer, but only because she needed to warm up. "Gee, thanks. No problem." Awkward silence, but not as bad as before. This time, Hyoka was the one to break it when her foot touched something on the car's floor. It made a crinkly noise like paper. "What the?" she said as she bent down to inspect. "What is it?" Shoto asked. Hyoka came back up with a bouquet of flowers. The bride's bouquet, that no one other than her has held today. "Those bastards," Hyoka thought with a blush as she realized Izuku and Momo's angle. But she still held the bouquet. Todoroki did not feel nearly as embarrassed. At all. "Wait, isn't the rule that any single lady who catches the bouquet is the next to get married? Damn, that means Jiro is Izuku's next wife instead of my mom or sister," he thought in disappointment. 10. Meanwhile, Izuku and Momo were smirking to themselves as they rode the elevator to the top floor. "Do you think she'll be mad?" Izuku asked. "Strong possibility. In the most likely outcome, we'll each get a jack to the arm." Momo chuckled as the elevator door opened. "Guess that means we'll have to make tonight last." Momo blushed. "Where is all this confidence coming from? Not that I'm complaining." For some reason, Izuku thought of Katsuki and his gang. Dread was his first emotion, unsurprisingly. But not fear. "I guess my bachelor party helped me more than I thought." Izuku fought and defeated Katsuki, told Mitsuki the truth and is married to a goddess. Insecurities were unfounded in Izuku that night. When they got to their room, Momo took the key card out of her bag and put it in the door's slot. "By the way, what's in that bag?" Momo blushed heavily. "You'll find out." Hegusha Hotel. Here they are. Their ceremony complete, the reception held, and the young couple becoming husband and wife. There was just one box left to tick, an undisturbed night to themselves. And they would soon have that as Momo opened the door to their hotel room. Sand-gray carpeted floors, a queen-sized bed and nightstands on either side. A TV hung on the wall, and behind the curtains was a balcony, providing a grand view of the city after dark. The bathroom was tiled with a marble sink and a large bath that could easily fit 2 people. "Whoa, this is one nice room," Izuku exclaimed. "It's nice, about the size of our closet, but I suppose it will suffice," Momo said. She and Izuku took off their shoes and Momo undid her bun, letting her silky hair flow down her back. No matter how many times he saw it, the sight will never fail to captivate Izuku. Momo smiled at seeing his awestruck face. She gently cupped his cheeks and kissed him. That snapped him out of it, and he started kissing back. They fell on the bed with the husband on top of his wife. When they pulled back, they were breathing heavily with love and desire in their eyes. It was like the night they confessed all over again. "Izu, do you remember what I said about you being more than a trophy spouse?" Izuku nodded. Momo reached into her gift bag on the nightstand and pulled out a piece of paper. Izuku's eyes widened as he realized what it was. A marriage certificate. And what surprised him was the name beneath both parties. Midorizu. 4. M. Momo. I. Izuku started tearing up at what he saw. Momo held his cheek with one hand and stroked with her thumb. "It has a nice ring, doesn't it? Something that says no matter our differences, neither of us is whole without the other." Izuku tackled Momo down to the bed and kissed her again. It was more loving and passionate than any other they've had before. They even slipped a bit of tongue into the mix. When they separated, a string of saliva was connecting them. "I love it. I'd love to share that name with you," he said as he wiped his joyful tears away. They lied there comfortably for a while, but something was nagging at Momo. Should I try out Mother's gift? It is our wedding night, and we should be experiencing new things together. But, what if it's too soon for his liking? Maybe in the morning, or, her thoughts were interrupted when Izuku sat up and took off his white blazer and tie. Izuku, Momo gasped with a furious blush as her husband started stripping right next to her. Sorry, I just didn't want to sleep in this tux, he said as he got out of the bed. If it weren't for Momo's private thoughts, she wouldn't have had such a reaction. I'll be in the bathroom to wash out all the hair gel in my hair, he said before closing the bathroom door. That gave Momo all the time she needed. It's just the two of us, on night that's supposed to be about us. Well, here goes nothing. Momo grabbed the last item out of her gift bag. Meanwhile, Izuku was in the bathroom splashing water on his face. We definitely can't do the deed yet, it's too soon for that. But, shouldn't we do something? Is that what she's thinking? That would explain why she was so startled. Okay, I'll get an answer when I walk out. Izuku reasoned as he splashed water in his green locks, running his fingers through his scalp and getting his hair back to its curly, unkempt self. That feels better already. 5 minutes later. I can't believe what I'm about to do, Momo thought as she placed her wedding dress in the closet and sat on the bed. Her heart stopped when she heard the bathroom door click. It swung open, and Izuku walked out with his vest off and the top 3 buttons of his white shirt undone. Hey, Momo, I was thinking. He stopped when he saw what his rosy cheek wife was wearing. It was enough to make him drop the vest he was holding. Momo was wearing white lingerie and stockings held up by a garter belt. The bra was hugging her breasts so tightly it made her chest look bigger. Her lace panties were clinging to her ass cheeks. The amount of creamy, soft, luscious skin she was showing was far more than Izuku had ever seen, and it caused his brain to stall. He could have stared at her for hours. Art by Bombacocta, web links. Zuzu. Momo spoke up, using the nickname to snap him out of it. She patted the spot next to her, inviting him to join her on the bed again. Needless to say, he obliged. He didn't object, so does that mean he likes it? She wondered. Izuku was once again hovering over her, their faces in close proximity but neither making eye contact. It was a lot more awkward than exciting, and Momo blamed herself for that. Sorry, I can change if you don't you dare. Izuku stopped her in a monotone voice. Why, you look stunning. Momo's eyes widened and her blush spread, but that was what she needed to hear to go through with this. Wrapping her arms around his neck, she pulled him into yet makeout session. The suffocating awkwardness disappeared, and was replaced by growing lust and desire. Their kissing got more heated as their tongues poked at each other. The two of them were moaning hotly in each other's mouths. NMF. Zuku. MFF. Momo. They separated when Momo's hand let go of Izuku and snaked downward, making Izuku gasp. She began unbuttoning the remaining buttons on his shirt. Izuku gave her a surprised look. Don't look at me like that. I'm in a revealing underwear set for you. It's only fair I get to see this, she said as she undid the last button and pulled his shirt down his shoulders. Now it was Momo's turn to experience brain lag. Her husband's chiseled frame was on full display right in front of her. From his pecs to his rock-hard abs, it all made her drool. Oh my god, you could grind meat on those. 3. When she finally looked up at him, she noticed that he too had a burning gaze aimed at her chest. Testing something, Momo grabbed his hand and slowly guided it towards her left tit. Izuku froze and looked her dead in the eye just before he could touch the holy object. He didn't say a word, but it was all in his eyes. They were hungry, but still asked her if she was certain. Momo gave him a reassuring smile as she placed his hand on her soft mound. His palm was on her bra while his fingers experienced her soft flesh. Izuku didn't try to squeeze, but the softness made it feel like his fingers would sink in with ease. Holy whoa, it's so soft and nice. I can't believe I'm touching her like this, but I don't want to stop. Izuku thought. Then go ahead, darling. Momo said. Izuku wanted to scream his lungs out for his newly discovered lustful muttering. He buried his crimson face in the crook of Momo's neck. She giggled for a moment, before a sharp gasp escaped her. Izuku counterattacked by kissing, licking and sucking on her neck. Ah, Zuzu, she moaned as she started stroking his back and hair. Izuku took it a step or two further, placing 2 hands on Momo's breasts, gently rubbing them, and biting down on her neck. The assault on her body sent a powerful jolt to course through her. Ha, she moaned loudly, holding Izuku tightly as her body started trembling. Izuku got concerned and released her neck to check on her. Are you alright? Did I hurt you? Momo's cheeks were flushed. She was panting, her eyes were half-lidded, and she had a wobbly smile with a bit of saliva running down the corner of her lips. It was amazing, dear, she said, stroking Izuku's cheek. The next thing he knew, Momo had switched their positions so she was on top. Izuku groaned slightly as her almost bare ass was pressing down against his bulge. Momo either didn't notice or chose not to try anything. But then again, Izuku felt good with every movement of her hips. Momo's attention was more on Izuku's abs. She kissed his toned stomach gently, trailing kisses upward, kissing his pecs. She gave him a cheeky smirk before kissing and biting his neck, earning a soft grunt from him. When Momo released his neck, she stuck out her tongue to Izuku with half-lidded eyes. Izuku blushed tremendously, but didn't refuse. He opened his mouth and slowly stuck his own tongue out. In an instant, it was claimed in the most lewd kiss they've ever had. Their slimy muscles wrestled for dominance while Momo's soft hands roamed over his sculpted chest, and Izuku's strong hands found her hips. In the end, Izuku won, but only because Momo was distracted. Izuku released her tongue as she moved to sit up on his lap and look at her rear end. And the bulge poking it. The two teenagers stopped for a moment and considered everything they've done up to this point. The clock on their nightstand read 11:24 p.m. Should we, call it a night? Izuku asked with a beet red face. Why yes, it is getting late and we've done enough. For now, we should try and get some rest. Izuku agreed, but neither of them moved. Izuku, my hips. Izuku blushed as he released his hold on her. Sorry. You're still rubbing my chest. Momo quickly retracted her hands. You're still on my lap. He came close to a deadpan tone. Oh, why yes, I'm sorry. Izuku grunted when she applied a little bit more pressure to his bulge before rolling off. Izuku moved to turn off the lamp on his nightstand. After he did so, Momo grabbed his arms and wrapped them around herself to be in a spooning position. Izuku was turning red once again. You Momo. Shish, it's okay. Good night, love. In the position they were in, Izuku had a face full of black hair and the tip of his erection had a generous helping of ass. The young couple went to sleep feeling completely content. Todoroki and Jiro. At around 10:50 p.m., Jiro and Todoroki were standing in Izuku and Momo's bedroom, the former having an internal freak-out. She heard from Momo that she and Izuku made out for the first time in this very room, and were caught by their parents. Not that that would be happening to her. Kyoka tucked Arie into the large bed the little girl had conked out a while ago. Shoto was looking in a dresser for something. He pulled out Izuku's blue hoodie. What are you doing? Kyoka whispered. Izuku told me once that Arie likes wearing his clothes. Keeps her calm. He explained as he wrapped the hoodie around her little body. Arie started moving around the bed as if looking for something with her eyes shut. An almost inaudible whimper escaped her. Shoto realized what it was instantly, having been in a similar position at her age. She needs someone to hold her. Shoto said, looking at Kyoka who had a surprised face. It's better if you do it since I haven't been an uncle very long. Kyoka was about to give her input on the matter, but another whimper from Arie stopped her. With a sigh, Kyoka climbed into the bed, and was quickly grabbed by Arie. Surprisingly quick for a sleeping child. Good night, Shoto said before walking to the door. I'll find a guest room, see you in the morning. His hand was on the doorknob but, Uncle. Arie had opened her eyes and tiredly called out to him. What the hell is Arie's sleep schedule? Does she fake sleep half the time? And how can any kid wake up after 10 p.m.? Kyoka's internal rant was killed by Arie's next words. Can you stay? Kyoka's heart skipped a beat when she heard that. Shoto had a similar feeling, but he grew a smile on his face. Of course. Jiro did a double take. What the fuck? Is Arie in on it, too? Am I gonna have to share a bed with Todoroki? The thought made her face heat up and glow in the dark. Shoto walked back to the drawer and pulled out a blanket. He walked over to the cushioned windowsill and set up a small makeshift bed. Good night, he said before resting his head and going to sleep. Arie did the same against Kyoka's chest. The perplexed just stared at the ceiling, anxiety and relief swirling inside of her. 1. Thank God. No way in hell could I have handled him getting in bed with me. But still, I'm sharing a room with a guy, the son of the number 2 hero. I swear to God, I'm gonna kill those idiots. As Jiro was plotting revenge, her eyes traveled to the little snowball resting on her chest. Sigh, maybe I won't kill them, but I promise they will know my wrath. It's too bad staying angry with Arie around is like asking a fish to climb a tree. Finally, Jiro fell asleep. Neither her nor Todoroki knew it, but Arie slept with a smile on her face. Fuyumi and Natsuo, the Todoroki siblings, had just been dropped off by Endeavor Well, Shoto's sidekicks, and walked into the house. Fuyumi sighed heavily upon entry. That was the worst wedding I've ever been to. It was the only wedding you've ever been to, Natsuo said. Fuyumi didn't respond, just wanting to get in bed and get the night over with. Don't worry, your wedding with Midoriya, the green one, will be much better. Fuyumi slammed her head against the wall. Why are you like this? 1. Where the hell is Shoto? Enji asked as he saw Fuyumi and Natsuo in the hallway. Hello to you, too, Dad, Natsuo said. Fuyumi was rubbing her temples, trying to come up with a decent lie. Well, after he and your sidekicks finished with guard duty, he, got a special lady's attention. Natsuo jumped in. Yeah, he'll be back tomorrow to explain it himself. Fuyumi was just about ready to embrace death, but the smile on their father's face begged her to ask what he was in such a good mood about. Ah, I see. Well then, I guess I'll hear the good news from Shoto tomorrow. Good night, Endeavor said before walking to his room. Natsuo wiped his brow. Phew, bullet dodged. You can thank me later, sis. Or never, depends if the idiot lives long enough. Fuyumi had a blank face as she tried to comprehend what just happened. Natsuo said Shoto was with a girl, which is true. But Endeavor doesn't know that it's not Momo. And he probably thinks she agreed to the quirk marriage. And Izuku will have to deal with the flaming bastard, sooner or later. And it would likely be even worse now that his hopes are up. 2. Sue, are you gonna say something or just keep standing there? The idiot asked. Fuyumi snapped, and grabbed Natsu by collar, and shook him back and forth. What the hell is wrong with you? What are you doing? Natsuo asked while being shaken violently. Do you know what you've done? You've gotten his hopes up, and when he realizes Midoriya and Yaoyorozu are already married, he'll incinerate him. She finally stopped shaking her younger brother and just glared at him, demanding he say something. Oh okay, granted, that sounds pretty bad, no shit, Sherlock. But he's the one misinterpreting what I said. And I technically didn't lie to him, so if shit hits the fan, it's gonna be his fault. Yes, points for Natsu for being somewhat honest. He saw how Mrs. Bakugo, a person whose temper rivals their father's, reacted when she learned about something kept secret from her. He wasn't stupid enough to repeat the same mistake Izuku did, and as we've seen today, that threshold is vast. 1. Fuyumi looked down at the floor, her bangs covering her eyes. She still kept her shockingly strong grip on her brain-dead brother, making him wonder if she had shut down. The next thing he knew, a frost-covered hand went straight to his stupid mouth. Natsuo tried to scream, but his lips were already frozen shut. Fuyumi released him when he had thick mask of ice from his top lip to his chin. She walked off to her bedroom, leaving a stunned Natsuo in the hallway. Angered nerds are the most frightening animals. That sounds like a good documentary. 1. The Bakugos. After the most surprising, aggravating and spontaneous wedding they've ever been to, Mitsuki and Masaru finally returned to the comfort of their home. Since Mitsuki's legs were still looking like a doctor's worst nightmare, Masaru had to carry her inside. Strange, it feels like we just came back from our own wedding. Masaru chuckled. If you're asking for sex, I guarantee I will never walk again. Mitsuki said. She pulled up her dress slightly, revealing her veiny, red flesh sticks. Some of the veins were starting to go down, and they weren't as red as before. The blonde devil detached herself from her husband's hold. She carefully stood up herself, wincing and cursing under her breath. I'll get you some oil. And ice packs. Better yet, I'll draw you an ice bath, Masaru said before running to the kitchen. Mitsuki stood in front of her door, unwilling to walk to the couch due to unholy pain. Fuck, I didn't tell Izuku to use protection. He already has blood eyes, that's enough for now. Knock, knock, knock. Mitsuki growled as she forced her legs to turn around and get the door for whoever was visiting at this ungodly hour. When she opened the door, she saw something that would have made her burst into questions. But today was taxing enough, and she couldn't put up with any more bullshit. It was Katsuki, her son, next to a police officer. On his wrists were black cuffs that had a red light on them. "Aw shit," Mitsuki groaned. "Evening, ma'am. I'm afraid your son was..." Mitsuki stopped his explanation by holding her palm out. "Yeah, no, not today. You can keep him until the end of the summer," she said so nonchalantly. "Fucking what?" Katsuki yelled. The police officer, however, didn't have any qualms with the lady's request. "Whatever you say, ma'am. Come on, son, say goodnight to your mother," he said almost cheerfully. "You bitch," Katsuki yelled as he was taken back to his holding cell at the police station, where he was all day while Izuku was having the best day and night of his life. 4. Mitsuki closed the door just as Masaru came back. "Who was that, honey?" "Fucking trouble." Yaoyorozu Midoriya Mansion. The Midorizu's room. Sunlight beamed through the curtains and on the sleeping face of Kyokujiro. The punk rocker groaned and turned on her side, not ready to wake up yet. The action caused Arie to wake up, and she accidentally yawned in one of Kyoko's earlobes. Even Arie's soft voice made a loud alarm clock. Two forces had tried to wake her up, but she still continued to snooze. The next one would definitely wake her up. The door swung open. "Morning, Uncle," Arie greeted, making Kyoko's eyes snap open. "Good morning, Arie," Shoto said. Kyoko sat up and saw the heterochromatic boy with a tray of food. "Did you sleep well?" he asked while placing the tray on Kyoko's lap. "Why yeah, thanks. And you?" For some reason, she was stuttering. It was probably just because she was caught off guard that they shared the same room last night. And the bouquet thing Izuku and Momo pulled. And the fact that Shoto was now sitting on the bed and eating breakfast with her and Arie. "Are we picking up Mama and Papa today?" Arie asked in between the two. "That's right," Shoto said. "Can't wait to see those two." Kyoko said with a dark grin and anger behind her eyes. "I'm glad you two are excited. This means I'll have to go back to my dad." Shoto scowled slightly. "Is your papa not nice, Uncle?" Arie asked. Shoto shook his head. No, he is not. In fact, he's the opposite of your papa." Arie was surprised by that. She didn't want to imagine the opposite of Izuku, because it would be hell. Kyoko gulped some of her food. "Right, Endeavor. He's the one who put you up to you know what." Kyoko pulled her left ring finger, not wanting Arie to know how her parents were almost broken up. "Yeah, and he'll probably be angry at Izuku for getting in the way." Shoto tried to drown his anger in cold soba. The thing that really cooled his head was Arie's red eyes. "If your dad gets angry with my papa, will you help him?" she asked hopefully. Of course. After the three of them finished breakfast, Shoto and Kyoko took the dirty dishes downstairs to be washed by the help. On their way back to Arie to help her get dressed, Shoto stopped walking. Kyoko looked back at him and saw him staring at his left hand. "You okay, man?" "I didn't want to say anything in front of Arie, but I'm not sure if it's a good idea for me to help Izuku against my father." Kyoko looked at him incredulously. "Huh, you're gonna leave your best buddy to fight Endeavor solo?" Shoto looked at her with tense eyes. "Of course I won't abandon him to that maniac, but then it'll be like the other times." Kyoko tilted her head. "What other times?" "Bakugo and Overhaul. Whenever I'm with Izuku and get involved in his conflicts, he gets scarred and hospitalized. Is there something wrong with me? Am I cursed?" Kyoko looked at his seriously concerned face. And burst into laughter. "PFF'd ha 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 ha. Since when do you have a sense of humor, Candy Cane?" Shoto still remained serious while Kyoko was holding her sides. "This isn't a joke. I'm like, the scar bringer or the hospitalizer or something. Ha ha ha. Dude, you're killing me." Shoto paled. "I'm killing my own friends. Maybe Endeavor isn't the worst of Izuku's worries." 2. Hegusha Hotel. We see our lovely couple lying together in bed half naked. Izuku, with his shirt off, was holding Momo tightly, in a revealing white lingerie set. Momo was the first to awaken, yawning slightly as she did. She didn't recognize the room they were in, but the ring on her finger reminded her. She couldn't help but smile fondly. Until she turned cherry red when she remembered everything that she and Izuku did last night. That might explain why his hands were resting on her beasts and she felt something hard between her legs. Those were definitely not there before. Her heart started beating faster, the embarrassment of their intimacy weighing on her. It was almost enough to make her go scream in the bathroom. But, Kyoka, I know what you bastards did, and I'm gonna kill you for it. She's going to kill us. Momo finally spoke. Izuku rubbed her shoulders. Let's not start writing our will yet. Look, the timestamp says that's from last night. Surely time with Arie and Shoto calmed her. Ding. Asterisk. Kyoka. We're in the lobby, come out before I start looking for you. Quote. She's going to kill us. Izuku said. Hotel lobby. The Yaoyorozu parents and Midoriya matriarch were waiting excitedly for their children with Kyoka, Shoto and Arie. When they heard the elevator ding, all their heads turned. The couple walked out hand in hand with the biggest smiles on their faces. Arie was the first to greet them, jumping into their arms. Soon after, Kyoka came. Let me guess, you were so loud making love that you had to buy the hotel or get kicked out, she remarked, looking at their serious attire. The two of them blushed profusely, while Arie was unaware what she meant. Anyway, Green, Todoroki's talking to your mom about her relationship with your dad. I don't know what that's about, but I'm marking it as a red flag. Izuku's heart skipped a beat as he remembered Shoto trying to set him up with his mother. Shoto Todoroki, I swear to God. Izuku ran away with Arie in his arms, leaving Momo and Kyoka alone together. Kyoka, I'd just like to act. An earlobe coiled around Momo's neck and restricted her breathing. What the fuck were you idiots planning? She asked slowly. It was just a treat for our friends. Momo gasped. Really? Well, thanks to you too. I barely slept sharing your room with Candy Cane. Momo's eyes widened as Kyoka realized her mistake. The perplexed released the ravinet and looked away bashfully. Wait, you slept in the same room me and Izuku became a couple in with Todoroki. Kyoka didn't answer. Oh, and the stars align. Momo thought with a smirk. Wipe that smug grin off your face. Nothing happened. Oh really? Then explain why you're still wearing his blazer. Kyoka's cheeks took on a bright red hue as she marched away. Towards her husband. And that's how he and my mom met. Shoto finished explaining. Izuku had a beet red face and Inko had paled significantly. The Yaoyorozu parents were trying desperately to tune that story out. Arie was listening intently to her uncle's tale. Why your mother sounds like a lovely woman, Inko began. But Izuku just got married, so I'm afraid he's off the market. Arie tugged Shoto's pant leg. Is she nice? Shoto smiled. Very. Can I see her? Izuku remembered he'd let Ray meet Arie, one scarred snowflake to another. But now he was starting to worry if Arie would start shipping it, too. Luckily, Jiro came up behind him to save him. Oh, Jiro, what's up? He trailed off when he saw her flushed face and cold glare. You're going to take me home and explain to my parents why I didn't come home last night. Am I clear? She pointed her jacks at his eyes. See crystal clear, ma'am. Izuku stuttered out. Everyone walked out of the hotel and had two vehicles to choose from. Izuku, Arie, Inko and Kyoka went into the Rolls-Royce that was supposed to be his and Momo's only, but Kyoka dragged him with her before Momo could save him. The Ravenet got in the limo with her parents and Shoto. I have a reason for splitting them up like this, and it's hilarious. 1. Dropping off Kyoka. Izuku was sitting up straight, feeling the intimidating aura Kyoka was emitting. She wordlessly promised a world of hurt if he tried to worm his way out of his punishment. So, Inko started, breaking the tension. How was your special night? Izuku blushed. It was fun. Movies and cuddling, that's all. It was painfully obvious Izuku was lying, not that anyone could blame him with Arie in his lap. Finally, they made it to the Jiro residence. Ready to die? Kyoka asked. Izuku slapped his cheeks and took in a breath. Let's go, he said. Arie hopped out of the car and followed the teens just because. When they reached the door, it swung open and revealed the ticked-off Kyotoku Jiro. Izuku gulped as Arie hid behind his leg, and Kyoka just walked inside. "I've been meaning to have a chat with you, Mr. M. Midorizu. It's a pleasure, Mr. Jiro." Izuku extended a hand to the man, who didn't do the same. "I wish I could say the same." 1. Listen boy, I don't know what kind of hole you dug yourself into that you had to marry a business tycoon's daughter to get out of it. Izuku's nervousness died down at the indication that Mr. Jiro thought he got married to better himself. "But you better leave my daughter out of it. I don't want my sweet Kyoka getting in that kind of trouble." Izuku took a breath. "With all due respect, sir, you're way off base. I can't deny I've had bad moments, but who hasn't? But I didn't marry because it would benefit me. Honestly, I can't imagine my life being any better right now. And that's partially thanks to Kyoka. I understand that my station isn't exactly normal, and it can cause you stress that your daughter is involved with us. I understand that stress, having one of my own. But I promise you, the last thing any of us want is to get her hurt." Izuku spoke without a hint of doubt, and maintained eye contact with Kyotoku. The older man seemed to soften up a little. "I'm sorry, did you say you have one of your own?" Izuku smiled softly. "Yes, the one your daughter's been babysitting. She's adopted, but I love her like my own child. Kyoka's been helping her open up to other people, and they have a special relationship together." Kyotoku looked at Izuku in a new light. Instead of an irresponsible, irrational teen, he saw a mature, considerate young man and loving father. 2. How old is she? 5. Her behavior. At first, she barely said a word, and always looked to be on edge. But I knew full well she wasn't okay, so I reached out and tried to improve things for her. We're still working on healing old wounds, some of which will leave lifelong scars, but I do my best for her. Kyotoku fought the urge to just hug the boy in front of him. "Any stress? You'd be surprised, but nothing really bad. The worst thing was when she kept a secret from me, and it turned out she was my flower girl." He and Kyotoku smiled fondly at that memory. 1. They spent a few minutes talking about fatherhood and parental obligations. It was quite a treat for the both of them to be able to talk about stuff like this. When Kyotoku asked who Arie was with, Izuku pointed down. The grown man finally looked down and saw the little girl peeking her head from her papa's leg. "Hi," she said nervously. Izuku and Kyotoku laughed that they had a whole conversation about daughters with the snowflake listening the whole time. Finally, Izuku and Arie went back to the car after bidding a fond farewell to Mr. Jiro. The man went back inside with a smile on his face. Kyoka and Mika Jiro had different expressions. The wife was amused while also intrigued with the whole father-to-father moment that went on. Kyoka looked mortified. She intended to get back at him for last night's setup, not make him and his dad become best friends. What the hell just happened? 4. Dropping off Shoto. Fuyumi was waiting patiently outside of her house with a book in hand. Since Natsuo is trying to thaw his stupid mouth out due to Fuyumi freezing it shut again, the Todoroki sister can inform her youngest brother of the predicament he doesn't know he and Izuku are in. Her eyes snapped at the walkway, where a limo had stopped in front of. She walked over to see Shoto and Momo, both looking very formal. Fuyumi put on a welcoming smile. "Hi again Yaoyorozu, thanks for dropping off Shoto." Momo smiled back. "It's no trouble, and it's Midorizu now." She proudly displayed her ring. Fuyumi congratulated her and shook her hand. Then her attention was turned to her brother. "Inside, right now, before." "Shoto, welcome home." Fuyumi wanted to cry. Endeavor walked out in his hero costume, and saw his youngest son with his future bride. "And the Yaoyorozu heiress, a pleasure to see you again." His smile was anything but comforting to Momo. "Endeavor, I share the sentiment." She did not. "I'm off to work, Shoto. I'm excited to hear from my sidekicks what you learned from your field trip with them." Shoto looked to the side. "I'm pretty sure I was the one directing them." The arrogant man launched off the ground, kicking up smoke as he did. "What's he so happy about?" Fuyumi had her face in her palms. "Because Natsu said you were with a special girl, and Dad thinks he meant Midorizu." Momo's eyes widened. "He doesn't know that I'm already married." "No, And if he finds out, I honestly fear for your husband's life. Fuyumi said. Momo had a surge of anger at the thought of the flaming bastard trying to split up her and Izuku. I will personally tell him that I am very happy with my Izuku, and shut down any ideas he has of engaging me to his son. No, Shoto said, shocking the two girls. What? Fuyumi shrieked. Why? Momo yelled. Because, I want to see how this plays out. Fuyumi couldn't hear it, but she was certain Natsuo was beaming with pride. I'm going home, Momo said. Good idea, save your brain cells. Fuyumi said. Momo. Yes, love, you spoil me, hee hee, but it's what you deserve. Izuku and Momo were lying in sun loungers next to each other, soaking up the golden sun rays. Momo wore her red bikini with a white button-up shirt with only a single button done below her bust. She was better than her husband, however, who only wore sky blue trunks and an unbuttoned shirt, displaying his flawless pecs which glowed under the tropical sun. They each had a glass of fruit punch in hand. Also, they were on a yacht. The young couple were enjoying a beautiful cruise through the sea for their honeymoon. But it doesn't end there. They're en route to a small private island under the Yaoyorozu's name. 3 days of the couple alone together on an island. Ah, but what could possibly happen? Tap tap. Izuku craned his head to look at who tapped his shoulder. Is Arie supposed to look this pale? Shoto asked, holding a sick-looking unicorn. Kyoka was with him. Papa. She groaned weakly. Izuku quickly shot up from his seat and held his little girl. Oh my gosh, Arie. Are you okay? She shook her head no. Momo got up and ran her hand across her daughter's cheek. Baby, are you seasick? Suddenly, Arie started breathing out of her mouth and gagging a little. She's gonna throw up. Over the edge, Kyoka shouted. Izuku ran straight for the ledge of the ship and held Arie there. Her little body convulsed in Izuku's hands as she barfed rainbows into the ocean. She groaned weakly as Izuku cradled her in his arms. I'm taking her inside to rest. He walked away to the cabins. I'll get her medicine. Kyoka ran off. I'll prepare her tea. Momo ran off as well. I'll make soba. Shoto ran to the kitchen. 2 hours earlier, the Midorizu family were standing on the pier, about to board the ship for their honeymoon. Kyoka and Shoto were going with them, but like Arie they would only see them off when they reached the island. The two were the most qualified to look after Arie at this point, and Shoto had already made plans to introduce his mother to the snowball. 1. A tropical getaway to your own private island. Look at you, Mr. Moneybags. Inko said, hugging her son goodbye. Ha. At this point, I'm hardly surprised. Love you, Mom, I'll call you every day and send pictures. Love you too, sweetheart. Enjoy your time with your wife. And remember, we already have Arie. I don't need any more grandchildren for at least a few years. Izuku hid his blush in his mother's shoulder. Just like that, said Angel appeared behind her papa with a rolling suitcase. When he pulled away, he went to see the Jiros. Let me guess, this is one of the small ones. Kyoka asked sarcastically. One of the moderately sized ones. ... Kyoka made an incredulous face at him. Arie grabbed Kyoka's hand and started dragging her to the boat. Meanwhile, Izuku was shaking hands with Kyotoku. Take good care of them. He referred to their daughters. I will. You won't have to worry about them. You'll see Kyoka safe and sound tomorrow. Kyoka could hear their whole conversation, and couldn't take it anymore. She wrapped her jacks around Izuku's neck and dragged him along while he struggled to breathe. I hate myself. Momo was saying goodbye to her parents, promising to be careful while exploring their newfound marriage. Afterward, she met up with the Todorokis. Nice yacht, Shoto said. Thank you. They mixed words under the gaze of Endeavor, who still thought the two of them were together. Fuyumi came up to them and pushed Natsuo in front of her. Here, take this. You can use him as a raft in case you capsize. Freaking what? Natsuo shrieked. 1. Enji told his older children to go wait in the car. Enjoy your getaway. Make fond memories, he said with an arrogant grin. Momo put on a polite smile. Shoto did not. The hot-headed bastard watched their backs as they boarded the ship. He also saw Izuku going on board with Kyoka dragging him. Perfect. Now Midoriya has his own woman and will stay out of Shoto's way. He climbed back in the car with Natsuo and Fuyumi and drove off. 3. In the back, Natsuo whispered to his sister. Okay, you're gonna hate me, I think I already do. She interrupted. But, Dad's got his hopes up so high, it'll be hilarious to see his face when he finds out Rozu is already hitched. Natsuo struggled to contain his laughter. It'll be hysterical when Shoto and Rozu have to spread the poor guy's ashes. Meanwhile, Shoto was walking behind Momo, who was radiating malice. Are you mad? Shoto asked, prompting Momo to look at him with a glare. Do I look mad? Yes, livid. If Endeavor lays so much as a finger on my husband once the curtain falls on this act, I'm holding both him and you responsible. Present. Arie lied down on the bed with a blanket draped over her, and her head on Izuku's lap while he rubbed her tummy. Arie, I'm so sorry this happened to you. I should have thought that you could get seasick here. What's seasick? Arie asked weakly. It happens when you're on a boat. The floor you're on isn't moving, so you feel like you're still, but the ship is moving when you don't perceive the motion. It sends conflicting messages to the brain, and it causes headaches, nausea and dizziness. Arie just groaned weakly, hardly understanding what Izuku just said. Suddenly, the rest of her family came in. Kyoka had nausea and headache pills in a water bottle. Open up, kiddo, this ought to clear up your stomach ache. Arie swallowed 2 pills with water. Here you go, dear. Golden Tips Imperial, the best tea I could find. Arie accepted the tea from her mother and enjoyed a large sip. Soba is easy on the stomach, and you shouldn't rest on an empty stomach. Shoto fed her a small bowl of soba. After all the caring gestures from her family, Arie was feeling drowsy. Izuku laid her head on a pillow. Before letting her sleep, he got her cat headphones and put them on Arie's head. She relaxed when her favorite song, Mockingbird, was playing. The piano chorus she listened to the day she was taken in by Izuku. Izuku rubbed her belly gently while she slept for a few minutes. After she was completely out, he removed the headphones and kissed her forehead. Get well soon, sweetie, he whispered. They all left her to rest, and were on the deck. Since Arie gets nausea from the motion of the ship, then they opted to move slowly to make it easier for her. Instead of arriving at Midoriya Island by sundown, they would make it the next morning. A small change in the schedule, but nothing serious. Suddenly, Izuku's phone started ringing. Hello. Oh hi. Yeah, most of us are doing great. One of us got seasick. No, mine. I used the trick you told me. Okay, I'll tell her for you. Thanks for calling. Bye. He hung up. 1. Who was that? Momo asked. Jiro's dad. He says hi, by the way. Izuku said to Kyoka, who was extremely surprised that he and her old man traded numbers. What was that about a trick? Shoto asked. Oh, letting Arie listen to her favorite song and rubbing her belly until she falls asleep. Kyotoku used to do that for Kyoka, and it never failed. Kyoka was simply mortified, and Momo was holding in her giggles. Not only does she have an overbearing father, but now that he and Izuku are in the dad club, it's become so much worse than she ever could have predicted. 4. Anyway, who wants to go swimming? Izuku asked. I was hoping you'd say that. Kyoka grabbed his phone and shoved Izuku over the edge of yacht. Wow. 2. Splash. Asterisk. Izuku. Momo screamed in horror. She undid the button on her shirt, kicked off her sandals, and dolphin dived after her husband. When Izuku got his head above the water, he was immediately pulled into a pair of soft, bra-clad floaties. Izu, are you okay? She asked frantically, holding his head to her chest. Bloop blorp blubblebub. Izuku mumbled into the water. 1. Kyoka threw them both a life ring to pull them back on board. Meanwhile, Shoto had an analytical face. So I can't have Izuku as a stepdad, but Jiro gets to have him as an uncle. That doesn't seem fair. Are you gonna help me, or what? They're both pretty heavy. Kyoka snapped Shoto out of his thoughts and stood behind her and grabbed the rope attached to the life ring. Kyoka had a subtle blush knowing Shoto could see her backside. See, couldn't you have stepped in front of me? The two of them pulled as hard as they could, although Todoroki was doing most of the work. They gave it one more hard pull when they saw a hand holding onto the ring as it reached the ledge. When Momo climbed back on board with a soaked Izuku in her arms, Shoto and Kyoka fell backwards at the sudden decrease in the weight they were pulling. My hero. Izuku swooned, wrapping his arms around Momo's neck. The Ravenet giggled and kissed his forehead. Phew, now I don't have to tell Arie her parents got lost at sea. Kyoka huffed as she sat up. Izuku and Momo stared at her, the both of them with shocked faces. What? Kyoka asked. She looked down and saw where she landed. Or rather, who? Ow, Shoto said beneath her. After taking a tumble, Kyoka landed on Shoto's pelvic area. She was sitting upon his waist, her tight butt inches away from his crotch. The ox-cord-eared girl jumped off him immediately with an atomic blush. Shoto sat up himself and shook his head. He looked up at Kyoka and saw her fidgeting and stuttering before running away. What just happened? The heterochromatic boy asked. Izuku and Momo had no answer for him. But they were both thinking the same thing. Ah, young love. Izuku was sitting on the nose of the yacht, the safest place he could be. In case Kyoka tries to kill him, he has an escape route. Suddenly, he felt something pointy poking his shoulder. Ah, please don't kill me, he shrieked with his arms up. Okay. A monotone voice responded. Izuku peeked to see Shoto with a fishing rod. Oh, Shoto, what's up? I found this in a storage closet. It's in pretty good condition. I thought I could give fishing a try, but my dad never took me, so I don't know where to start, he said sadly, causing Izuku's heart to clench. Yeah, same here, but I've seen some videos, so I could help you out. I'd like that. 2 minutes earlier, I'm going to kill your husband. Quote, Kyoka said, muffled by the folded towel she had face planted into. She and Momo were sitting at a patio table with fruit smoothies. You already tried, Momo responded. I have to ask, when did Izuku and your father get so chummy? Kyoka groaned into her towel even harder. I took him to my dad so he could bite his ear off about early engagement, and then they started talking about fatherly crap and daughters, and whoop-dee-doo, they're besties. Momo rubbed her friend's shoulder. There, at least he doesn't think we're bad influences anymore. Kyoka turned her head and glared at the greenette sitting on the nose of the ship, already wanting to throw him overboard again. Those thoughts died when a half-cool, half-hot boy walked past her. Any murderous intent was replaced with embarrassed bubbling. Her angry eyes darted away, and were met with Momo's smug ones. I'm going to kill you, too. Momo didn't say a word and just sipped her cold, fruity drink. On the bright side, the boys are having fun. Momo knew that would get Kyoka to turn her head again. She heard Shoto mention fishing and his dad. She then remembered that Shoto tried hooking Izuku up with his mom. Oh, this'll be good, she grinned wickedly. I hope they catch something good for dinner. What kind of fish do you like? Red herring. Meanwhile, Izuku and Todoroki got their first bite and reeled it in. It was a large red herring, wriggling and flopping about as they plopped it on the boat. Shoto held it with his right hand and froze it solid. Great catch. That went pretty well for our first time. Izuku exclaimed happily. Yeah, it did. Shoto smiled. You two appear to be having fun. Behind them was Momo and Jiro, the both smiling but for different reasons. Yeah, Shoto and I caught dinner. I think it's called a red herring. Kyoka snickered, confusing Izuku. Click. Shoto snapped a picture of him and Izuku, with a fishing rod between them and a frozen fish. My first catch, he said. What a touching father-son experience. Kyoka laughed, as Izuku realized the trap he walked into. Shoto, I swear if you send that to your mom, you don't have to worry, Izuku. The greenette sighed in relief. I sent it to both our mothers. Quote. Jiro, would you please? Happily. Kyoka pushed Izuku overboard again. SHOOOTTOOO. 1. Splash. Asterisk. Darling. Momo shrieked as she dived after him again. I'll get the life ring. Kyoka turned to get the orange ring. No, I've got them, Shoto said as he started reeling in the couple. Momo created a plastic ring the size of her hand to catch the hook of the fishing rod. She and Izuku were pulled up once again with him in her arms. Catch of the day. A pair of cuttle fish. Kyoka joked while snapping a picture. 1. How can that string hold us both? Izuku asked. Stainless steel fishing rod strand. Momo said. 2. Later. Izuku was lying down on the sunbed with a towel around his neck. I think I've had enough swimming for one day, he sighed. Momo checked the time and saw it was close to dinner time. I'm going to go check on Arie. Momo walked up the stairs to hers and Izuku's cabin. Instead of seeing Arie on the bed, she was on the sofa staring out the window with Momo's phone facing the open sea. I'm feeling better now, she said. That's good to hear, Momo said, startling the little girl. Momo sat next to Arie and saw two familiar froggy faces on screen. Hi Mrs. Arie's mom, Satsuki greeted. Hi there, how's the honeymoon going, Ribbit? Suyu asked. Lovely, thank you for asking. Satsuki and Aunt Sue called after I woke up. We've had fun talking, Arie said. Apparently, they'd been talking for 15 minutes. Thank you for keeping my daughter from getting lonely. Momo sat Arie on her lap and they said goodbye to the Asui sisters. How is your tummy doing? Better, but I'm hungry. Just then, Izuku walked in to see his special women. Hi Arie, you okay? Arie nodded. Great, Uncle Shoto and Auntie Kyo are getting dinner ready in case you're hungry. She perked up when she heard that. Before they left, they had to change. Momo took off her shirt and just wore her yellow sundress over her red bikini. She was quick and walked away with Arie as Izuku took off his shirt and trunks. Momo could see every inch of his backside. His muscled back, his biceps and triceps, his scars, his toned A, Mama, I'm hungry. Arie poked her mother's pink cheek. Oh, sorry, honey. Let's go, I'm hungry, too. Momo made sure to hold Arie's head into the crook of her neck as she speed walked away. She was inwardly praying Arie's eyes didn't follow hers. 1. Meanwhile, Kyoka and Shoto were preparing a small grill and meat and vegetables. Shoto heated up the coal while Kyoka washed the veggies and seasoned the meat. Kyoka was slightly tense, the memory of landing on Shoto kept working its way into her head. Damn those two, I shoulda just let them drown. She picked up a knife and began chopping the food. Me and him, he's nice and all, if a little dense. But I already know where he stands. I'm not like Momo, his old man wouldn't approve. Kyoka chopped absent-mindedly. It's hot enough, Shoto said behind her, startling Jiro. Gah, don't sneak up on me like that. The perplet winced in pain as she cut her finger. Shoto turned on the tap of the outside sink and moved Jiro's hand into the running water. Kyoka blushed intensely at Shoto so brazenly holding her hand after she got hurt. Once the wound was clean, he pulled a box of band-aids out of the sink cabinet and gently placed one around her finger. Are you okay? He asked, staring into her eyes. Why yeah, thanks. They didn't even notice the small distance between their faces. Do we have enough for a fifth mouth? Momo asked, ruining the moment. Kyoka turned into a deep shade of red as Shoto turned to see his niece looking much healthier. We'll eat soon, I hope you're hungry. Izuku joined them all in a blue shirt with floral prints and breathable tan cargo shorts. Hi, what's on the menu guys? He asked cheerfully. Vegetable and meat kebabs. The chefs are roasting the fish down below. Kyoka explained. We've got carrots, peppers, garlic, cauliflower, broccoli, and beef and chicken. Shoto listed. What's a kebab? Arie asked. Jiro smiled and explained. Well, you take a stick and jab your food in it. She demonstrated putting a carrot slice through a stick. And cook it over the fire. Shoto explained as he lit his left hand under Kyoka's kebab. The carrot was cooked fairly quickly, and given to Arie to try. She ate the piece, and wanted more. Can I try? Everyone smiled at her. Kyoka helped Arie make her kebab. Since the meat came pre-cooked, they only needed to heat it up and could get started quickly. The 5 of them gathered around the fire, holding their sticks over the grill's surface. They all happily gobbled on their kebabs, the appetizers for tonight's dinner. Auntie and Uncle make good food. Arie squealed happily with her kebab. Shoto and Kyoka looked each other, and then away just as quickly. Momo and Izuku smirked playfully. With the kebabs finished, the yacht's chef came up with a rolling table, and a plate of mouth-watering goodness. He lifted off the cover, revealing a sliced and diced red herring, topped with salt, vinegar and lemon juice. Bon appetit. He left them with their meal and a side dish of garlic bread. Everyone pulled up a seat and dished up. A delicious meal surrounded by loved ones and having the ocean glisten like gold for a beautiful view. It was all so perfect. You and Papa caught this fish? Arie asked, to which Shoto nodded. I think our first catch turned out great. He smiled, but Izuku forced his. Yeah, but not as good as your second catch, Kyoka said. She pulled up her phone and showed Arie a picture of her parents hanging on a fishing rod. Arie giggled at the photo while the couple blushed. After finishing their meal, Arie started looking lightheaded all over again. Are you getting sick again, Arie? Izuku asked, to which she nodded. Let's get you tea and to bed, Momo said, reaching to pick up her child. Before she could take her away, Arie stopped her so she could stare at the horizon. She did that for several seconds, and felt stable again. Aunt Sue said looking at the horizon when I feel sick will help me. Momo smiled. That's a very useful tip. I'll have to thank her. Shoto, Kyoka and Izuku cleaned up the table while Momo made Arie's tea. The husband and wife's cabin. Izuku sighed as he sat down in the bathtub, letting the hot water wash away his cares. Man, this is incredible. Over the course of one summer, my life has completely changed. Friends, a daughter, a wife. Things I doubted I would have even 10 years later. He took off his ring and placed it on the side of the bath. Before doing so, he kissed the piece of jewelry. I couldn't be happier. Then, as if to challenge that claim, Momo came in only a towel. Momo. Izuku gasped and flushed. Izuku, oh, I wasn't aware you were already using the bath. Momo stuttered, distracted by her husband's glorious bare chest. I thought you would take more time getting Arie to bed. Momo closed the door for a reason she wasn't aware of. So did I, but she's out like a light on our bed. Gee, good. That's good. There was a thick, steamy air of awkwardness surrounding the couple. Neither of them looking each other in the eye. May I join you? Would you like to join me? They asked at the same time. A blush spread across their cheeks and they giggled. Momo took off her wedding ring and placed it next to Izuku's. She removed her towel, and Izuku's were immediately drawn to her naked form. Her shapely legs that led up to her pillowy rear. Her slim waist and wide hips. Her buxom chest, and her long raven hair. Everything about this woman was perfect in his eyes. Like what you see? Momo asked, nervous yet excited by his gaze. Very much. Sorry, I looked for too long. Izuku pulled his eyes away. It's okay. I was staring at you when you were getting change. And I likely wouldn't have left if Arie didn't snap me out of it. A small chuckle escaped from the greenette. She was really staring at me. Why does that feel so flattering? He couldn't ponder it any longer when a sudden weight landed on his lap. His raven-haired goddess sat herself down on him, catching him completely by surprise. He instinctively held her waist closer to him, and she rested her hands on his. The feeling of having her bare-ass cheeks on his pelvis made holding it back impossible. Momo jerked slightly when she felt a familiar presence between her luscious thighs. She looked down hesitantly and saw the tip of her husband's penis for the first time. Oh my! Izuku's penis. Just the head is poking out. Since Momo sat on Izuku's lap, his member would have to be, for young teenage standards, quite sizable for his tip to be seen. Momo couldn't take her eyes off the pink head, feeling compelled to do something. She wiggled her hips ever so slightly on Izuku's lap, making him gasp. Momo, why you, seem to have a little issue. But that thing is anything but little. Turns out, they're both early bloomers in some physical areas. Momo placed her hands on his thighs to steady herself and moved her hips back and forth, her butt cheeks massaging Izuku's length. The greenette breathed in and out, struggling to believe that this was happening to him. He had to be careful though. One wrong move, and they could both lose their V-cards. Not yet. Is this all right, dear? Momo asked looking at him over her shoulder. It's incredible. Your B-butt feels amazing. Momo's cheeks were painted red. She never expected such a shining review from something like this. She looked back down at the member she was giving an ass job to. It was an intimidating specimen considering it still has room to grow. She measured about 3 inches from when her ass cheeks collided with Izuku's hips. She guessed another 3 inches that her behind was hugging. 6 inches. According to my research, that's the average size of an adult. How can a minor be physically on par with an adult? Momo has no room to talk. 4. She felt Izuku's members start to twitch and throb. His heightened breathing made it clear to her what was coming. Momo. He groaned fairly loudly in a room with an echo. Darling, please try and keep your voice down, Momo whispered to him, reminding him that their sleeping child was only a few feet away. Despite her words, her hip movements sped up. It was like she was excited to see him reach climax. If she keeps up this pace, I won't be able to hold back. Just before his climax, Izuku pulled Momo's head to him and kissed her right on the mouth. Momo. MMF, he moaned into her mouth, catching her by surprise. His penis released ropes of thick semen into the bath. Izuku held Momo on her side, sinking his hand into her soft ass while the other held the back of her head. In what felt like a split second, Izuku was moaning into her mouth, holding her body in his arms and winning a tongue battle that she didn't even know he started. When they released, Izuku nibbled on her bottom lip and tugged it slightly. I guess that means he enjoyed it immensely. Momo let her thoughts slip out, and Izuku heard them. He initiated another steamy kiss, and Momo was prepared for this one. She turned herself to face his body and sit upon his soft member. Her large chest was pressing against his as they moaned into each other's mouths. Knock knock, they both jumped at the knocking on their bathroom door. Mama, Papa, come to bed. I'm tired. Arie yawned from the other side of the door. They had forgotten how Arie gets when she doesn't have either of them with her at night. We'll be right there, Izuku said, trying to get her to get back in bed instead of coming in and seeing the state her parents were in. They quickly washed each other, and climbed out of the bath, both of them only in bathrobes. As Izuku was putting his right hand on the doorknob, Momo grabbed his left hand. He looked back at her soft smile and half-lidded eyes. She slipped his ring back on his finger, and held his hand fondly. Without a word, they shared one more kiss. They found Arie lying motionless on the floor, only 2 steps away from the bed. The combination of tiredness and lingering seasickness caused her little body to conk out. Her parents picked her up and climbed into bed, Arie in the middle, comfortably squeezed between her parents. Midorozu too. The first person to wake up was Arie, despite passing out on the floor the previous night. Her bright red eyes opened and she released a small yawn. She tried to stretch, but she was being squished between her parents. She wriggled about and face planted in the pillow. Soft, she thought. Then she turned her neck and saw Momo's chest pillows. The bathrobe had become loose overnight. Feeling like doing a comparison, she stuck her head between her breasts. Soft, warm, I can hear Mama's heart. I like her pillows. Momo awoke with a new sensation in her chest. She peeked down and saw Arie's head retracting from her bust. What was she doing there? She wondered. Arie then turned around and pressed her head on Izuku's chest. Hard, but not too hard. Warm, and I can hear Papa's heart. It feels safe. I like Papa's chest pillow. Momo didn't know what Arie was doing or why it made her chest tighten. She woke up to find her child in between her rack, and is doing the same thing to her husband. Arie, what are you doing? She finally spoke. Arie got off of Izuku's chest to answer. I wanted to feel your chest pillows. Yours are soft, his are hard. They both feel nice and warm, better than real pillows. Momo giggled at her daughter's antics. Although, it made her wonder about how she would fare for the next few days. Izuku yawned and stretched his arms. The first thing he saw when he opened his eyes was his wife and child. Good morning, Papa. Arie rested her head on his bare chest again. Good morning, Snowflake. He stroked her back. Good morning, wifey. He smiled at Momo. She leaned down and planted a kiss on his lips. Good morning, love. The little family rose out of bed, 2 of them making sure to adjust their robes and put on underwear. They left their cabin and stood out in the open, inhaling the fresh morning air. Oh whoa. You can see the island coming up. Izuku pointed towards the small plot of land ahead of them. 3 days of just us alone together. I've been looking forward to it, Momo said, holding Izuku's hand. Arie, however, wasn't as psyched. She had been briefed about her parents' honeymoon. To be so far away from them for days, it scared her at first. But she was reminded she had her grandparents, aunt and uncle and her new friend, so she wouldn't be lonely. Meanwhile, Kyoka rose out of bed, with hair that could challenge Izuku's curly locks. Damn bedhead. She stretched her limbs and yawned, still not fully awake. Maybe dipping her feet in cold water would wake her up. She went to the back of the ship where the pool was. Morning. Kyoka's droopy eyes snapped open when she heard that monotone voice. Shoto was sitting on the edge of the pool with his feet in the water. Candy cane. What are you doing here? She asked with a blush. For some reason, it's becoming difficult for her to keep her heart steady around him. I needed a wake-up call, and I thought cold water would do the trick. Kyoka slightly pouted. Couldn't you have just used your icy half? What about you? Oh, same reason. She stood there awkwardly, her eyes not meeting his. Are you going to get in? Shoto asked blankly. Why yeah, right. Kyoka shakily sat down on the edge of the pool and soaked her feet in the cold water. Instead of waking her up, it was a cool down for her very much awake heart. Not only was she technically in a pool with a boy, she had bedhead and was wearing an oversized shirt that wouldn't allow her to spread her legs when sitting. Almost there, Shoto said. What? Jiro screamed. The island is in view. We'll be there after breakfast. Kyoka calmed down and felt embarrassed. Oh, yeah. Kill me. Shoto looked out towards the sea. Since her parents are going to be away, we'll be splitting the babysitting duties. Kyoka looked down at her reflection in the water. Yeah, she'll need our attention. My dad isn't keen on letting me stay at the mansion the whole time though. I've got plans to introduce my mom to her. I think they'd get along. Kyoka smiled. I think I'll play it safe and keep her away from my dad, at least for a few years. The two of them conversed comfortably until their feet were wrinkly prunes. When they were called for breakfast, Shoto had found his eyes occasionally drawn to her slender legs. Honeymoon Island. The ship anchored on the small dock of the private island Izuku and Momo would call home for the next few days. The island itself was the size of a suburban neighborhood block with a small forest. There was a 2-story beach house with solar panels on the roof. This place is beautiful, Izuku exclaimed. I'm so glad you like it, dear. This is one of our family's offshore vacation homes, so it was easy to set it up for our honeymoon. We hire people to maintain the property and manage the vegetation to make sure it's presentable when we arrive. Momo explained. Everyone looked around the house, finding the kitchen, bathrooms, and the master bedroom that had flower petals around the bed. Hopefully, I'll be far enough away to not hear their lovemaking, Kyoka thought as she closed the door. 1. While Izuku and Momo were unpacking their luggage, Shoto and Kyoka were with the yacht's crew bringing essential items. Toilet paper, fresh food and food ingredients, clean drinking water, stuff like that. Izuku went back to the yacht to grab something, leaving Arie and Momo in the house. Mama, I'm thirsty. Arie said. Well, what would you like to drink, sweetie? Can I have your milk? Momo paused, and felt her cheeks heat up and chest tighten. Excuse me? See, could you please repeat that? I want to drink your milk, please, Arie said with no hesitation. Momo was internally panicking. Drink my milk? But I never what, Arie, I don't know how to tell you this, but I don't have any milk. It was incredibly embarrassing to have to say that to her own daughter. Arie tilted her head in confusion. But what if Papa and me are thirsty? Momo turned red completely. What, her and Izuku? What is even happening right now? I can't breastfeed yet. In the midst of Momo's mental breakdown, Izuku walked in. Hey, what are you guys up to? He asked cheerfully. Momo excused herself from Arie and quickly dragged Izuku to the kitchen. Something wrong? Izuku asked, noticing the disturbed look on his wife's face. Izuku, Arie said something. What was it? Momo fidgeted. She said, tea that she wants. Milk. Izuku's worried expression then became much more relaxed. Is that all? But we've got plenty of milk. Momo looked at him like he had gone insane. Excuse you. Arie? Izuku called his daughter across the kitchen island to the living room. We've got milk if you want some. Arie smiled and walked to the kitchen. Momo was about to have a conniption, until she noticed what was in Izuku's hand. A gallon of milk. And she remembered many times when Arie liked warm milk. All of a sudden, she felt like throwing herself into the ocean. As Izuku poured Arie a glass of milk, Momo put her face in her hands. Luckily, as soon as Arie got her drink, she left her parents and went to go look at the ocean. What made you think we wouldn't have any milk? And why were you so freaked out when Arie asked for milk? Momo peeked through her fingers to see Izuku blush and look at her bust before looking back at her eyes. They stayed frozen in the kitchen for a while. Meanwhile, I think I should call you Chris Hansen now, Kyoka remarked from behind Shoto. The two of them were walking through the small forest of the island, and Todoroki used a machete to cut down low branches and vines. Where the hell did you even get that? I fought it in the shed, Shoto replied as he cut down a handful of vines with a clean cut. Hot damn, Kyoka thought with a blush. To be honest, she was slightly intimidated by the island's forest. Momo never mentioned what creatures could inhabit this small plot of land. Her jacks were focused on pinpointing anything approaching from behind. Snap! What was that? She yelled. She turned around and backed up into Shoto. What was what? I heard something. The small rustle of fallen leaves made their way closer to the two. When it was close enough, Kyoka fired her jacks at the source. Oh! A high-pitched voice screamed. I know that voice. Shoto and Kyoka investigated the source and found Arie with a broken glass of milk. Oh, sorry Arie, you scared me, Jiro said as she picked up the girl and wiped the milk off her clothes. What are you doing out here? Shoto asked. I was looking for you. I saw you going in the trees and I wanted to see what you were doing. They continued down the random path they were on. We're just wandering around, looking for something interesting, Shoto said while chopping down overgrown vegetation. Apparently, it was only well kept when close to the house. They came up to a wall of shrubs, vines and leaves. It took Shoto a good amount of effort to cut it all down, with Kyoka not blinking once while he did. When he was done, he gestured for the two to come over. They found a pond surrounded by rocks. Whoa, nice find, Kyoka commented. It's beautiful, Arie said, trying to squirm out of Kyoka's hold. She put the snowball down and she took off her shoes and went playing in the water. Don't drink that, you'll get sick, Kyoka warned her. She and Shoto watched the little girl play, kicking the water, finding shiny wet rocks. It was especially nice for Shoto to see a scarred child enjoying their youth. His smile was almost blinding to Kyoka. She turned her head so she wouldn't be caught staring at his handsome face, not that that was her description, and saw Arie throwing rocks and making a splash. She got an idea. Hey Arie, have you ever skipped stones before? Arie looked at her approaching aunt. Stones can skip. Kyoka picked up a flat stone and skipped it across the surface of the pond. Arie watched in amazement as the rock bounced 3 times. That was so cool, auntie. Let me try. She found a stone similar to Kyoka's and threw it. It sank. The little girl looked disappointed and gripped the hem of her sundress. Kyoka patted her head and smiled at her. It's okay, I can teach you if you want. Arie nodded. She gave Arie another flat stone, and showed her how to hold it. Her arm needed to go in a line rather than overhead. Arie's second attempt was much better, her rock skipping twice. I did it. Thank you, auntie. She hugged Kyoka's leg. Arie then ran to the rock Shoto was sitting on. Uncle Shoto, Auntie Kyo showed me how to skip stones. Shoto smiled and patted her head. I saw, you did good, Arie. Arie took the hand off her head and pulled him to Kyoka. She can teach you, too. Huh. Jiro blushed up a storm while Shoto looked impassive yet surprised. She can teach you stone skipping, like me. Auntie, can you please? Arie gave Kyoka puppy dog eyes that were impossible to say no to. Damn it. Well, if he wants to. Most of her mind was begging for Shoto to decline, but the smallest part of it was hoping he'd say yes. Sure, why not? Todoroki answered. Fuck me. Quote. Great. One Todoroki stood at the edge of the pond with a flat stone in hand. Your fingers are wrong, it's better if you pinch it with your thumb and pointer. Shoto corrected his holding, and let her rip. He got 3 jumps. That was great, uncle. Arie clapped her hands. Not bad for a first try. Actually, pretty good, Kyoka said with her arms behind her head. Shoto smiled at her, which made her heart skip a beat. Thanks for teaching me, Jiro. Her heartbeat was deafening to her own ears, and her face was heating up uncomfortably. She was so focused on herself that she didn't notice the smile he gave her was bigger than his usual small smiles. They walked back to the house with Arie between them holding their hands. Beach House Kyoka and Momo sat at an outside table, both of them with bright red cheeks. They were looking at everything but each other. One kept glancing at her chest and the other put a hand on hers. They both had a common reason for the discomfort in their hearts. The snow angel. I love Arie like she's my own adorable, sweet daughter. But, right now, that unicorn tugs at my heartstrings like no one else. But, right now. They both slammed their heads on the table. I am so upset, pissed with her. The best friends finally looked at each other after seemingly being in the same boat. Arie? Kyoka asked. Arie. Momo nodded. What did she do? Kyoka placed her hands on her face and sighed. She found me and Candy Cane walking through the forest. Momo listened intently. We found a pond, I skipped a stone, she wanted me to teach her, and… Mumble asterisk. Pardon. Kyoka groaned. She wanted me to teach Todoroki, too. Kyoka couldn't see it, but she knew Momo was smiling. At least it wasn't teasing, more like genuinely happy for her. What about you? Momo blushed heavily. Arie asked for milk. Kyoka looked at her with a deadpan expression. That's it, all she wanted was fucking milk. It wasn't the request, it was the phrasing. Momo struggled to get the next few words out. She said she wanted my milk. Kyoka looked confused and annoyed, until Momo pointed at her prodigious bust. Then it hit her. That girl is going to be the death of us, they both said at once. The boys, and Arie, Izuku, Shoto and Arie were a few feet away from the girls, looking at their hunched forms and hidden expressions. What's wrong with them? Shoto asked. I don't know. Arie answered. Izuku shook his head, but then redirected his attention to the table next to the grill. He was making lunch for everyone over an open fire like a true husband. He had uncooked burger patties, soft buns, and condiments. He placed 5 patties on the grill and kept a vigilant eye on them. He flipped every 2 minutes, and refused to leave his post. What are you making? Shoto asked. Hamburgers. They're pretty big in the US. Izuku answered as he flipped a cooked burger coated with a pair of buns. He gave Shoto the first one. The bicolor teen sank his teeth into the juicy, well-done slab of meat between 2 soft buns. Izuku and Arie were watching intently, awaiting his response. How is it, uncle? Todoroki swallowed and gave his review. Pretty good. The meat has a nice crisp and smoky flavor. You're a great cook, Izuku. Izuku blushed slightly and scratched the back of his head. Thanks, I'm glad you enjoy it. Can you call the girls and tell them theirs are ready? Shoto nodded and went to the ladies' table. While Izuku was giving Arie her burger, Shoto talked to Kyoka first. Did you get it? Right here. She held up her phone and showed him a picture of Shoto eating Izuku's barbecued delicacy. Momo shook her head. Kyoka, really? You're helping him try to get a stepfather out of Izuku. Send that to me later. I would if I had your number. Shoto took his phone out of his pocket. Let's trade. Kyoka blushed. A boy just asked her for her contact. She only got Izuku's number from Momo, but a boy with a beautiful face had just asked her for her number. Sure. Why did she sound so eager? They swapped numbers, Momo having a smile on her face the whole time. Lunch. Everyone was sitting outside on a long table, enjoying Izuku's cooking. One side, Momo was in between Izuku and Kyoka, and on the other side, Arie was next to Shoto. Dear, this is delicious. I might just want seconds. Momo praised Izuku's culinary skills. Pretty tasty, green. Kyoka agreed. Thanks guys. Arie had a constant smile as she ate. It's pretty yummy, Papa. Shoto nodded. Yeah, Papa makes tasty food. Kyoka snickered and Momo nearly choked on her burger. Izuku forced himself to keep a smile, but he was screaming and thrashing about on the inside. I have got to talk to either him or his mom about this. Whatever this is, he just realized it now, but sitting him next to Arie made it seem like a sibling seating plan. Late afternoon, the SS Midorozu was ready to set sail back to the mainland with only 3 passengers this time. Shoto and Kyoka gave the little family some space to say goodbye. Arie was embraced by her parents in a warm hug. Goodbye Arie. We'll call you every day, okay? Izuku said, which Arie nodded. We'll be back before you know it. Make sure you behave, and ask your grandparents or Aunt Kyoka or Uncle Shoto for anything. Arie nodded. When they released the hug, they were holding hands. I love you, Arie said. Izuku and Momo kissed her forehead. We love you, too, Snowflake. With that done, Arie boarded the ship. Kyoka and Momo shared a goodbye hug. Take care of her. You got it. Shoto and Izuku had a different kind of hug. It was more like Izuku hugging him, and Shoto rubbing his back and saying, "There, there. Did you check with the hospital that it's okay?" Shoto nodded. "Yeah, she can meet my mom. I know she's going to wish you could come." Izuku chuckled, remembering his time getting to know her in the hospital. On that note, Kyoka and Shoto boarded the ship and waved goodbye as they took to the open waters once again. "So, what now?" Momo asked. Izuku cupped his chin in thought. "Well, right now I'd like some milk." Momo blushed and folded her arms with a pout. "Ha ha." Izuku wrapped his arms around her and rested his head on her shoulder. "And to enjoy a lovely honeymoon with my amazing wife." Momo let herself crack a smile and rub the back of his head. "Next time, start with that." Meanwhile, Arie was standing on a chair to be able to rest her arms and chin on the ledge of the yacht. She was staring out into the golden horizon, not because of the pain in her stomach, but the pain in her heart. She felt herself get picked up from behind and sat in Jiro's lap. "How are you doing?" Shoto asked. Arie looked down at her lap. "I miss them," she said quietly. "I'm sure they miss you, too." Through it all, Kyoka took in a deep breath, wanting to kick herself for what she was about to do. "Hush, little baby, don't you cry, everything's gonna be alright. Stiffen that upper lip up, little lady, I told ya, Auntie's here to hold ya through the night. I know your folks aren't here right now, and we don't know why. We fear how we feel inside. It may seem a little crazy, pretty baby, but I promise. Everything's gonna be alright." Kyoka wrapped her arms around Arie to make her feel safe and protected. Arie relaxed in her hold, Kyoka's singing voice doing wonders for her anxiety. Shoto looked at her with amazement in his eyes. "That was beautiful," he said to her. Kyoka blushed, but kept her composure. "Thanks." Arie laid her head on Kyoka's chest and started looking drowsy. "You better take her to bed," Shoto said. "You gonna be okay while I'm gone?" Kyoka asked as she stood up with Arie in her arms. "I'll be fine, thanks." Kyoka left with Arie, leaving the youngest Todoroki to stare into the open sea. The music of the waves had nothing on Kyoka Jiro's voice. Soft pillows, warm blankets, crashing waves making for relaxing music. It would be difficult for anyone to get out of bed under these desirable conditions. But what really seals the deal is the body warmth of your partner. This wonderful aspect made getting out of bed a daily challenge for Izuku and Momo. Izuku woke first, as usual. He stretched his arms past Momo, who was snuggling deeper into his chest due to being disturbed. Izuku looked down at the sleepy beauty with a smile, wrapping an arm around her back and placing a hand on her hair. "Good morning, wifey." Momo opened her onyx eyes halfway. "Morning, Izu," she said tiredly. It was clear she isn't as much of a morning person as Izuku, so they stayed in bed just a bit longer. 30 minutes later. "Okay, now I think it's time to get up." Momo reluctantly let go of Izuku and stretched. Her hair was sprawled out, a few strands over her face. The couple shared a morning kiss, which seemed to awaken Momo a fair amount. They went down to the kitchen of their beach house to prepare themselves breakfast. Or more accurately, Izuku made breakfast while Momo hugged him from behind and observed. "What are you making?" she asked. "Rice omelet. How does that sound?" Momo kissed the back of his neck. "It sounds lovely, dear. I'll make us some tea to go with that." And so, the married couple made their breakfast together. It felt like they were getting closer in doing so. Momo reluctantly released her husband and went to start the tea. They worked in comfortable silence, enjoying the serene atmosphere with the one they loved. When they finished, they sat in the living room and enjoyed their meal. "You're an excellent cook, Izuku," Momo said as she took a second bite of her rice omelet. Izuku happily blushed at the praise. "You can thank my mom for that. She taught me how to cook when I was 12. I like to think I'm capable enough in the kitchen." "Capable" is a weak adjective. Though I am curious, why did you start cooking so early? Izuku took a sip of his tea before answering. "I just felt like I had to do something around the house, so I asked my mom to teach me. A lot of nights, she always looked so tired, so I wanted to lighten the load." Momo recognized the tone Izuku was using. It was him trying to repress the sadness of his past. He quickly covered it up with a smile. "Cooking actually became fun for me, and I got good at it with practice, so it all worked out. It's basically a second hobby for me." Momo pushed down the curiosity of what he'd been through, and smiled at him. "Well, whatever the case, You certainly have skill. Maybe as much as your mother. Izuku chuckled. I don't know about that just yet, but someday. When the two of them finished their meal, they put the dirty plates in the dishwasher. While the machine cleaned their plates, they went outside to sit on a sunbed and enjoy the tropical sun. One single sunbed. In their arms, they laid contently. I wonder how Arie's doing. Momo voiced her thoughts. I think she'll be okay. Shoto told me he'd bring her to meet Ms. Ray. Momo didn't quite know how to feel about Izuku's relationship with the older woman, especially with Todoroki's ideas. Shoto also mentioned bringing his brother and sister along. Momo's eyes widened. Really? Yeah, she's their mom too. Momo was somewhat concerned about Arie being with so many new people, even if they were Shoto's family. Actually, it's because they were Shoto's family that she was concerned. As far as she can tell, the only truly dependable one is Fuyumi. I think we should give them a call, see how they're doing. Izuku agreed to hear his daughter's voice. They went back inside to get his phone. He dialed Shoto's number and waited. Click asterisk. Hello. Hi Shoto, it's Izuku and Momo. Just asking if you've picked up Arie for... Oh come on, hee. Izuku was interrupted by Natsuo yelling in frustration and Arie giggling victoriously. Should we be worried? Momo asked. Worried about Natsuo's mental health, Fuyumi answered. That's the third game he's lost to Arie. I don't know if he's that bad, or your daughter is a genius. Neither. I was distracted by the call, she got lucky. Natsuo attempted to save face. We're arriving at the hospital now, Shoto said. Okay, have fun and... Momo cut Izuku off. Don't try to set your mother up with Izuku again, understood? She didn't get an immediate answer, just the sound of seatbelts clicking and the car door opening. Enjoy your honeymoon. You didn't answer my question. Arie, say goodbye to your parents. Todoroki, bye mama, bye papa. Click, ehehehe. Well, we know Arie's fine. Izuku shut up when Momo lightly glared at him. Without words, she weighs saying, and that is your best friend? Izuku doesn't exactly have a good track record of best friends, but what can he do? Noticing his wife wasn't in the best of moods, he offered to do anything she asked for. Momo cupped her chin and thought about it. She decided on it once her eyes caught the open sea. A smile grew on her face as she looked back at Izuku. How about a ride? 5VRRHHMMM. Asterisk Izuku had his arms wrapped tightly around Momo's waist. They were riding her jet ski across the water. How long have you had this? Izuku yelled. Since I was 13. While Momo had a wide smile on her face, Izuku was holding onto her for dear life. Calm down, Izuku. It's fine. Momo wouldn't let you fall off. As long as she doesn't go faster than this, we're fine. Izuku thought to himself. What's that? You want me to go faster? Momo asked, making Izuku's heart stop. One of these days, his damn mouth is going to be the death of him. If you insist, honey, no, wait. 2VRRHHMMM. She cranked up the speed greatly, making waves on waves which made for a bumpy ride. Momo mistook Izuku's cries of terror for amused screaming. Back in the house. I'm so sorry. Momo apologized deeply. She was holding a trembling Izuku wrapped in blankets on the couch. It's fine. IIS should have SSP spoken M more C clearly. That was the most stuttering she'd ever heard from him. Momo felt like she basically terrorized him, and thought of a way to calm him down. One later the couple was sitting together with books in hand and a scented candle filling the air. Well, Izuku read an ebook from his phone, but still. A peaceful midday of reading in comfortable silence with their spouse. It did wonders for Izuku's shot nerves. His posture was much more laid back, and Momo's legs across his lap made a nice security blanket. This is nice. Izuku commented. Indeed, Momo agreed. What are you reading? Izuku asked. A story about this boy who suffers neglect from his family and runs away, and later becomes a vigilante. His experiences make him go from meek to ruthless. You? A story about a famous hero duo. It's based off another story, but the two are teamed up to stop a mind-altering villain. Sounds interesting. 5 hint. 3 They spent hours reading their respective stories, enjoying the calm atmosphere and ever-present peace their partner brought. Unfortunately, their time was cut short when Izuku's phone started ringing. It's Mom. He put his phone to his ear and answered. Hi mom, what's? What? Hold on, slow down. Momo looked up from her book with concern. Izuku lifted her legs off of him. Sorry, I'll fill you in a second. Momo's face scrunched up in confusion. Is everything okay? I don't know, but I'll tell you. Izuku stepped outside to try and get Inko to talk in an understandable pace. Mom, what's the matter? Honey, haven't you been told? Mitsuki's been screaming her lungs out whenever I call her. Izuku was getting seriously worried now. Mom, please tell me, what is happening? He asked, afraid of the answer, but still eager to know. It's about your school and 1. You and Katsuki's falling out. Meanwhile, Momo couldn't get her own nerves in check after overhearing part of such a serious conversation. Whatever it was, she wanted to know desperately. Sigh, perhaps TV will be a good distraction. She turned on the TV in hers in Izuku's room. She was shocked by what she saw on the news. Breaking news. Aldera Junior High School temporarily closed. Momo covered her mouth with her hands in sheer surprise. That's Izuku's school. 1. A confrontation between two students has prompted an investigation into the school. Two boys in their second year had to be split apart by a police officer. Their names, Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo. A photo of the two was on display. Suddenly, Momo felt anger surge through her when she saw Katsuki's face again. What did you rope my husband into? The officer who caught the boys was shown on screen. It was a hot day on Dagoba Beach when I caught those two before anything serious went down. The blonde one was holding the green one by the collar and was lighting up explosions in his hand menacingly. There was no one else around, so I had to step in before things got violent. That's when I recognized the infamous Bakugo. My niece, who was in the same class as him, told me somethings but nothing about bullying. After that ordeal, I thought Aldera could do with some questioning. Something didn't fully make sense to Momo. No one else around? That's not true. Todoroki was there, and Bakugo's followers, and there weren't any police involved. Izuku wouldn't lie to me. But, has he told me everything? Hello, I'm Naomasa Tsukachi, the detective said. After Izuku Midoriya was hospitalized by Kaichisaki, I had a few words with him in private about his school life. His story was disturbing, putting it gently. He told me about constant bullying and harassment that his teachers never lifted a finger to stop. Simply because the boy is quirkless. This gross neglect and disregard for a student's health and well-being is unacceptable, and it is why many of the staff are relieved of their duties they weren't fulfilling, including the principal. Yet another question has arisen. When he was hospitalized, but he told me they only talked to Arie. The news also showed a few students who were interviewed. Some saying the teachers hardly did anything about bullying, especially on weaker kids. Others saying they uplifted Bakugo because of his heroic potential. All of it made Momo sick to her stomach, and the thought of Izuku having to endure cruelty with no one to help him, it brought tears to her eyes. It was sundown when Izuku finally got off the phone after a lengthy discussion with his mother. He looked for Momo and found her in their shared bedroom. It was dark, save for the dim red sunlight breaking through the curtains. Momo, there's, something I need to talk to you about. He spoke, but received no answer. The Ravenette was sitting hunched on the foot of the bed, with her head in her hands. Momo? Izuku walked over to her and placed a hand on her shoulder. She looked up at him with puffy, red eyes. He immediately bent down in front of her. Momo, what's wrong? Momo took a deep breath. Izuku. Do you know the kind of school you come from? Izuku was confused by her question, but it became clear when she turned on the TV. His eyes blew wide open when he saw him and Katsuki and their school on the news. Aldera shut down for intolerable discrimination against quirkless student. Momo was gauging his reaction. Wide eyes, slack jaw, completely immobile. His body language screamed shock and disbelief. Oh man, I didn't think it would be this serious, he said. Momo turned off the TV and made Izuku look at her. I'm not going to force you to tell me everything, but I don't want there to be any secrets between us. It doesn't have to be now, but, Momo. Izuku cut her off. He held her hands and looked up at her. I'm ready to tell you. That's why I'm here. Ask me anything, I'll fill the blanks. Momo's eyes widened slightly. She expected him to want to talk the next morning. Regardless, she pulled him onto the bed and they lied down facing each other. What happened between you and Bakugo that a police officer had to get involved? Izuku breathed in. He came to me and started yelling, as usual. But, things escalated when he mentioned you. I got angry and told him to take what he said back. It surprised him, but also made him madder. Momo scowled at this. Izuku, you said you were surprised at how your school is being handled. But, after you were questioned by a detective, what did you expect to happen? Izuku looked down. I don't know. A warning for the school to stop. I guess I didn't think about what would happen because nothing changed before. Momo's intrigued eye prompted him to elaborate. Since I was in kindergarten, I would try and tell the adults about how I was bullied. It was always, they're just playing rough, and they have a bright future, don't discourage them. I know it was because I'm quirkless, and viewed as less than. It's not that I completely disagree with them. As disagreeable as he is, Katsuki does have an awesome, flashy quirk. Just what the world is looking for in a hero. That's why they protected him and his cronies. Why derail his future for the sake of someone who deserves so much more? Izuku looked up at Momo. You were left to fend for yourself against animals by your teachers, and they protected the ones who made your life miserable. Forgive me if this sounds callous, but I'm glad the police are finally serving justice. And you? How can you, to any extent, agree with the twisted ideas of those lowlifes? Heroes are supposed to protect people and their futures, and they let a violent, egotistical brute ruin your school life. Izuku agreed with everything she was saying, but at the same time, was thinking about something she definitely wouldn't agree with. At least not at the moment. He just settled for holding her tighter and resting his head on her shoulder. Momo rubbed his back soothingly. Were you really planning to go back to that place? She started again. Izuku sighed against her. At first. But that changed when I saw you after my stay at the hospital. You mentioned homeschooling. My first thought was, couldn't I do the same? Do I really have to go back to that school? In that moment, you gave me a reason to hope for a good school life. Sorry, I didn't mean to be selfish. Momo pulled her husband's head up to look him dead in the eye. You are the last person who should be apologizing. Honestly, I feel that I owe you an apology. Izuku's eyes widened. Wait, what? You've done nothing wrong. I complained to you about my own middle school issues, but I hadn't any idea how bad yours was. Looking back on it now, it feels silly to be so upset when you're going through something so much bigger. Izuku kept his grip on his wife and stroked the back of her head. It's not your fault I've gotten good at hiding my pain. Evidently, that wasn't the best decision I've ever made. That would be letting you into my life. The two of them stayed together in bed, feeling much safer in each other's hold. Momo inhaled the scent of Izuku's hair. Pine trees and cinnamon. It was more soothing than the scented candle she lit earlier, allowing her to calm her burning heart. Izuku ran his hand along the silky onyx waterfall of Momo's loose hair. The softness made his body numb with serenity. Izuku was wearing an apron in the kitchen, preparing dinner. Small bowls of katsudon, because he needed comfort food and, after all the revelations and emotional stuff, neither of them were in the mood for much. Still, they couldn't sleep on empty stomachs. Izuku felt a pang of guilt in him for not telling Momo his most recent decision. She knows I don't want to go back to that school. But, when it reopens, will it still be that school? And will Katsuki still be Katsuki since he won't have the teachers to protect him? I don't know, but I want to. Momo, dinner's ready. He called for his wife. She walked down the stairs to the dining table, wearing only a bathrobe. She had just gotten out of the shower. Thank you, Izu. The two of them ate their rice and pork cutlets. As always, it melted in their mouths. Even emotional turmoil couldn't prevent Izuku from making a 5-star meal. Shame, now I want seconds. Momo smiled, making Izuku laugh slightly. It music to her ears. The water is still hot, you can go wash up. Izuku did as she said and left the table. Before he left the room, Momo grabbed his left hand and kissed it. Izuku felt his cheeks heat up, and a wide smile spread across his features. That small simple gesture conveyed so much. You're precious to me. I want you to be happy. Izuku walked up the stairs to the bathroom with his heart and soul feeling much lighter than before. While the greenette washed himself, Momo was packing the dirty dishes in the dishwasher. When that was done, she sat at the table and looked out at the moonlit ocean. How can anybody be so heartless as to turn a blind eye to a suffering child? And of all people, an absolute saint with the heart of a hero. It makes me sick to my stomach. She stood up and walked up to the master bedroom to change into the sleepwear she packed. If Inko saw the news about Aldera, there's no doubt in my mind mother and father have as well. I'm fairly certain they'll have a hand in who will fill the recently cleared teaching positions. That's what I would do. In the meantime, I will love and care for my husband as much as he needs. She resolved as she finished getting dressed, which didn't take long at all. When Izuku walked out of the bathroom in just his loose shorts with his bed shirt in hand, he was greeted with a sight that made his brain stall and drop his shirt. Momo was sitting on the bed, her hair free and glowing in the moonlight. She was wearing the same white button-up shirt he wore on their wedding day, and black panties. If it weren't such an awe-inspiring sight, he would be asking why she packed his shirt in her suitcase. "Are you planning to join me?" she asked, snapping him out of his trance. "Oh, of course." He took a large stride to the bed, completely forgetting about his bed shirt on the floor. Momo scooched over to make room for him. When he got under the covers, Momo pulled his head straight into her soft, ample chest. Momo?" Izuku asked. The ravenette rested her chin upon his green locks and wrapped her arms around his neck, effectively trapping him in her bust. "Good night, love," she said. Izuku calmed down, not much considering what his pillow was, but enough to hold her waist. He understood Momo's action, after their serious conversation. He could bear being her stress pillow if it meant she could rest somewhat easy. Before falling asleep, Momo had some final thoughts. "I'll see to it that anyone who lays a hand on my husband will regret it." Izuku woke up in a position he would have to start getting used to quickly. His face right between Momo's bountiful boobs. Even after all this time, after everything he's been through, his wife's physical gifts still have the potential of sending him into cardiac arrest. A small part of him doubts that would ever change, though. He tried to be slow and subtle in his escape from the booby trap, but Momo's arms around his neck made escape next to impossible. It got worse better when all of Izuku's movements made her react by pulling him in closer and holding him tighter. Now, Izuku was starting to suffocate in his lover's bosom. His heart was pounding and he couldn't take in enough oxygen to keep up. "Is this really how I go? Suffocated by my own wife's breasts? Not the worst way to go out." 5. Fortunately, before Izuku could go to heaven if he wasn't already there, Momo yawned and stretched her arms out, giving Izuku a breath of fresh air. Momo rubbed her eyes and brushed the strands of hair that fell on her face. "Ah, good morning, love," she yawned. She saw Izuku looking bright red, somewhat illuminating the dark room. Good morning," he stuttered. Momo wasn't quite sure what he was so on edge about, until she remembered how they slept. "Maybe that wasn't the best idea. I just wanted to have him close to me." To calm the pounding in his heart, Izuku focused on something that always brought him comfort: her eyes. Those pale gray orbs that he's come to love more than any other. It worked, but there was a drawback. Momo saw the absolute stress in his eyes. Her first instinct was to pull him back into the covers, which is what she did. "GHK. Izuku grunted suddenly. Momo froze when she felt something poking her thigh. "Ah, this is what they call morning wood." She looked back at Izuku, who was red like a tomato. 2. He tried climbing out of the bed. I'm gonna go make breakfast." But Momo's grip on his arm stopped him. She didn't say it, but it was 5 o'clock in the morning. Far too early for breakfast. Her second reason: "Don't push yourself, you're stressed." Momo climbed out of bed herself and turned Izuku around to face her. His eyes didn't meet hers right away. That was all she needed to be certain something was wrong. The effect of last night's news weren't going away anytime soon. The ravenette leaned in and connected her lips to Izuku's. He gasped momentarily, but melted into it. Momo's soft hands cupped his cheeks. When they separated, he was completely focused on her. "Sorry, it still hasn't sunk in." He was pulled into a hug as Momo stroked his hair. "I know, love, I know. But it shouldn't weigh you down. It's a good thing. Now please, get back in bed." Izuku did as she asked and went back to the large bed. When Momo got in, she got on top of him and pressed her breasts against his bare chest. "Momo?" he asked. The heiress looked away bashfully, a pink tint dusting her cheeks now. We shouldn't neglect your problem area. There's no reason you should stay like that." Later, Izuku was in the kitchen making breakfast, this time at a normal time to be making breakfast. He settled on something easy. Udon. Despite it happening recently, his mind kept going back to what happened in the bedroom. The end part especially. She tasted his essence, and almost immediately spit it out. He didn't know how to feel about that, but it was still bothering him. Not to mention, he started getting hard every time he thought about it. About her. Momo had awakened something in him. Meanwhile, Momo was sitting in the living room, waiting for the meal to be served. Usually, she would be hugging Izuku from behind, but this morning's events made her ponder where to go from here. The feeling and taste of Izuku's cock was still fresh on her mind. Her nether regions became moist every time she thought about it. Something had awoken in her, too. After the couple had their meal with light conversation, Izuku was putting the dishes in the dishwasher. That's when Momo decided to confront him. Izuku, can we talk? Oh, sure, what about? Momo gulped. Earlier in the bedroom. Izuku blushed at the memory of what transpired after he woke up. I was thinking that, just tell me if I'm being ridiculous, but I didn't at all dislike what we did, and if you're willing, we could try more. Izuku's eyes blew wide open in shock. The dumbstruck look on his face made her regret asking. Just forget I said anything. I'm sorry for even asking, okay. Momo's rambling was cut off by Izuku's simple, straightforward answer. At first, he was stone-faced, but then the blush and surprised eyes caught up with what he just said. Well, it is our honeymoon. We should be making good memories, especially after last night. And trying new things with you is always great. So, what did you have in mind? Momo didn't know what she was expecting, but it wasn't consent. Once again, she counted herself lucky to have Izuku as her husband. In the warmth of the afternoon sun, Izuku and Momo wore their respective swimwear to go splashing about in the water. Izuku wore turquoise trunks, and Momo a red string bikini. They thought it would be nice to get out of the house and get some fresh air that didn't smell like debauchery. They spent a good amount of time splashing each other and enjoying the tropical atmosphere. After, *burp. Oh, pardon me, sweetheart. That was amazing. I couldn't stop. Momo sighed as she laid on the couch, rubbing her full stomach. I'm just glad you loved it, Izuku said while putting the leftovers in a lunch box. Due to Momo's quirk, she eats more than a regular person, but even she couldn't finish a meal the size of Izuku's heart. The dishes and laundry were washed and being dried, which gave them some time alone before they would go home. Izuku, may I see your phone? Momo asked. Sure, but why? Izuku gave her his phone. Well, we'll start homeschooling Arie in a few days, so I'd like some pointers from someone with experience. I believe Todoroki's older sister has some useful advice. She found the contact she was looking for and dialed. While Momo was excited to begin teaching Arie, Izuku looked distant for some reason. Todoroki household, what did you do? Fuyumi asked, standing in Natsuo's room. I don't know, what did I do? Natsuo asked back. Fuyumi showed him her phone's call screen. Izuku, green heart, Natsu struggled to hold in his laughter. Okay, I may or may not have changed that contact when you weren't looking. But it only happened because you left your phone unlocked. I went to blow my nose that night. What if his wife sees this and gets the wrong idea? Natsuo waved off her concerns. Oh come on, like she would look through your phone. You can just change it before anyone sees. But that can wait until you talk to Mido. Fuyumi had forgotten she left her collar hanging for a strangely long amount of time. Why hasn't he hung up yet? She asked. He must really wanna talk to you. The real question is why haven't you answered? Fuyumi's cheeks turned pink at her little brother's teasing. Shut up. It's probably just about Arie and her schooling. Why yeah, she reasoned as she tapped answer. Natsuo shook his head amusedly. Hi Midorizu. How's it? Fuyumi was interrupted by an emotionless voice on the other side. A female voice. It made her heart stop. I'll call you back. Fuyumi pulled the phone away from her ear and stared blankly ahead of her. What did he say? Natsuo asked. That was his wife, the spectacled woman said breathlessly. Natsuo's mouth was hanging on the floor. Holy shit, what did she say? What did she say? Quote. She'll call me back, herself. Fuyumi grew pale when she repeated that. Natsuo ran his hands through his white hair. Oh damn. Fuyumi, you homewrecker. 2 minutes earlier. Izuku, is something wrong? Momo asked. He ran a hand into his green locks. Well, sorta. Momo put his phone down but let it ring. She reached for Izuku's hands and held them in hers. If there's anything bothering you, you can talk to me. Her eyes were as genuinely caring as ever, and they never failed to get through to Izuku. It's just, you bringing up the topic school made me think about my school, and there's something I should probably tell you. I'm a little worried about how you'll take it. Momo squeezed his hands in hers. Dear, no matter you say, I promise I won't be mad at you. Izuku took a deep breath and dropped the bomb, so to speak. When Aldera opens up again, I'm planning to go back. Just for the remainder of the year. The news was shocking to anyone. Even Izuku couldn't believe he had come to that conclusion. Despite how surprising it was, Momo's face didn't change from the smile she had. But that smile was no longer reassuring for some reason. Momo. Suddenly, the call on Izuku's phone picked up. I'll call you back, Momo said as she tapped end call. Izuku grew worried. Wifey. Momo just kissed his cheek and stood up, letting go of his hands. Just a moment, my love. Izuku watched her carefully as she walked out onto their sandy porch. She was quiet for a few seconds. But then, whaat. Her voice was carried for miles across the ocean. Any birds that were on the island immediately flew away from what startled them. Izuku nearly fell out of his seat when he heard that eardrum-shattering scream. And he debated running out of the room when Momo walked back to him without the smile. I'm not mad, she said with slightly furrowed brows. But I would certainly appreciate an explanation. 2. Izuku rubbed the back of his head, and Momo spoke up again. Izuku, why in the world would you want to go back to the school that treated you so appallingly? You said yourself that you wouldn't want to go back there, so why? Momo's voice was raised, but Izuku knew it wasn't anger talking, but protectiveness. He knew that feeling the loathing of the idea of your significant other getting hurt in any way, so he gave her the explanation she was owed. I don't want to go back to the school that treated me that way. But things will be different. So many of the staff were dismissed, my abusers don't have anyone to protect them now. Aldera will get new staff, things will change and I want to see that change for myself. Even if I'm hated more than I was before, I want to see the difference. Momo could see he was dead set on going back to that hellhole. She was given a choice. Deny it and have him be upset with her, or allow it and risk him getting hurt again. But Izuku did bring up good points. Even the principal is getting a replacement, so surely there will be a change. And there's the most important point Izuku forgot to mention. He's changed from the timid, easily frightened, frail boy he was 3 short months ago. And now he has the Yaoyorozu conglomerate and most of the Todorokis in his corner. Momo sighed and put her hands on her face. Izuku awaited her response when she moved them. If you're completely sure about this. Izuku's eyes widened, and he quickly held her hands. I am. Thank you so much. Not so fast. You have my pass, but we haven't even discussed this with our parents. And certainly by now, mother and father know about your history with that school. Izuku seemed a little discouraged but still held on to hope. On the topic, did you say anything to Inko about this decision? Izuku looked to the side. And no, you're the first person I thought I should tell. Momo pouted as her cheeks became light pink. Why do you always know what to say to make me feel better? 4. The raven-haired beauty sighed. If, by some slim chance, our parents let you go back, and anything goes wrong, you can take me out in a heartbeat. Oh, more than that. I'm suing the school and ensuring every one of those scoundrels that touched you are taken to court. Am I clear? Izuku gulped at the intense threat that he had no doubt she would live up to. Why yes honey. With that sorted, they decided to pack up their things. 1. Okay, I think that's everything. Izuku huffed as he put down 2 heavy suitcases on the porch. Momo placed one handheld bag on the pile. You didn't have to carry the majority of our luggage alone. Izuku stretched his muscles. It's okay. It's the least I can do after what you agreed to. Besides, I needed something to help stave off my energy. Izuku was unable to stand still as he bounced onto the sand in front of their beach house. I can see the ship. I can't wait to see Arie. It's been forever. 3 days. Momo quickly joined him. She created a pair of binoculars and gave them to her eager husband. There's Shoto and Jiro. I hope they can. Wait a second. Izuku paused. What is it? Momo asked. It looks like something just fell in the water and they tried to catch it. Izuku gave Momo a turn with the binoculars. She saw a sudden splash and ice. Momo. Izuku tapped her shoulder. Yes, honey. She pulled down the binoculars and saw something skimming across the water coming straight at them. Whatever it was so fast it looked like it was splitting the ocean in half. What is that? Izuku screamed. Momo got in front of him, lifted her shirt and created a shield from her stomach. Brace for impact. Izuku stood beside her to help hold the shield up. It was useless though as the blue blur sped so fast it smashed right through a metal shield and into the couple. The air was knocked right out of them, and they were knocked back a few feet. The impact caused their ribs to break. But then suddenly, the pain was undone as quickly as it had appeared. 1. They felt a wet and warm object clinging to them tightly and trembling against them. When the dust settled, they were met with a head of long white hair and a small yellow horn that was glowing before going dim. And a very familiar blue hoodie. Arie. They both shrieked in utter shock. 5 minutes earlier. Todoroki. Get your ass over here, now. Kyoka yelled from the railing at the front of the main deck. Shoto ran up to the perplet. Do you need help? He asked. Gee, I dunno, you tell me. In Kyoka's arms was Arie in an oversized blue hoodie with her arms stretched out to the island ahead of them, and her legs moving in a blur. Mama, Papa, she shouted. At first, Kyoka tried wrapping her in Izuku's jacket, but that proved useless. In fact, it made her more energetic to see her parents. 1. Don't worry, I've got this. Shoto ran back to the cabin. Where the hell are you going? I meant just take her out of my hands. Meanwhile, Arie was completely unresponsive to everything but what was in front of her. She could faintly make out the dots on the sand as her parents. Shoto then returned with his phone. Arie, wanna play a game? He showed her Flappy Bird, Snake in her fav, Pac-Man. She didn't even bat an eye. Okay, let's try something else. He ran back into the ship. Just hold her for me. Kyoka screeched. Shoto returned again with a tray of apple slices, applesauce packets, apple juice boxes and partially eaten apple pie. Look Arie, apples, sweet, tasty apples. Again, no response. Darn, not even her favorite fruit. Maybe Soba and Katsudon will, for the love of God, just take her out of my hands. Kyoka cried out, her arms now shaking from holding a running unicorn. Why don't you just turn her away? Shoto asked. This is why. Kyoka turned Arie 90 degrees away from the direction of the island, and she just started thrashing about, legs kicking, arms swinging, looking like a tiny wrecking ball. It was substantially more difficult to hold her like that than when she's running on air. 1. How did this even happen? Shoto asked. Hell if I know. We were chilling on the sunbeds, then I hear Momo's voice in the middle of the freaking ocean. Even more surprising, she heard it, and went crazy. Jiro explained. Okay, let's try this. Shoto raised his frosty right hand. Whoa, you can't freeze her, she'll get sick. Shoto then placed his palm on the floor and made a half wheel of ice. She'll burn herself out with this, like a hamster in a wheel. Kyoka tried to place Arie in the ice construct while keeping her sights straight ahead, but that plan was also a fail. Arie's tiny legs moved so fast, the ice beneath was ground into minuscule shards. What the actual fuck? Kyoka screamed in her head. Arie, please, they're just a few short minutes away. My arms can't take much more of this. Her desperate begs fell on deaf ears. Shoto was pondering. I don't get it. She should have been burned out by now, but it looks like she's not slowing down at all. How? 1. Shoto noticed her horn was faintly glowing, meaning it was her quirk was at work. She was using rewind on herself to run on virtually infinite energy. And with no clear indication of how much energy she has left, she could literally keep running for hours. It wasn't affecting Kyoka because she was holding her with Izuku's hoodie, no direct contact between the two. My arms are gonna fall off. Jiro cried in exhausting pain. Okay, I'll take her. Shoto finally opened his arms. Kyoka tried to move Arie to him, but she made a terrible mistake in doing so. She took her eyes off the snowball. Arie's heel connected with the rail, and she used it as a foothold to finally break out of Kyoka's hold. Her and Shoto's hair blew due to the wind she kicked up. Their hearts dropped to their stomach when they saw Arie running across the nose of the yacht, her little feet leaving dents in the nose. Arie. They both lunged after her, but it was too late. She jumped off the edge. Momo's gonna kill me. Momo's gonna kill me. Momo's gonna kill me. Kyoka repeated as she pulled her hair. I wouldn't be so sure. Shoto said. They both looked ahead to see Arie running across the damn water. Kyoka's eyes bulged out of her skull. What the fuck? This kid is gonna be the death of me. Look at her. Is she fucking Sonic? I'd say classic Sonic, Shoto added. Kyoka tried lifting herself up, but that was difficult without the use of her arms. I'm gonna turn that snowball into a snow cone. As soon as I can use my arms. 2. We should probably go explain to her parents what's happening. Shoto said. I highly doubt we can. And how are we gonna catch up to the water skimmer? Kyoka squeaked when she was scooped up by Shoto in his arms. This is how. He jumped off the ship with her, and immediately used his right side to surf on ice waves. Izuku and Rozu are gonna be so mad. Shoto said. Not as mad as I am. Kyoka yelled, too angry to blush at the fact that she was being held in a boy's arms. I missed you. Arie sobbed into Izuku's chest. We missed you, too Snowflake. It's been too long. Izuku sobbed while tightly holding his daughter. Momo held both of them, and kissed Arie on her head. Arie, your legs are soaked. Here. She created a light pink towel from her leg and wrapped it around Arie's soaking waist. Arie looked at Momo and hugged her, too. The little family is back together in each other's arms. 1. I'm gonna kill them, Kyoka said while jumping out of Shoto's arms. I'll write an obituary, Shoto said. Kyoka slowly approached the family with her arms hanging limply at her sides. Don't pay attention to how disgustingly sweet they look together. Don't look into Arie's teary eyes. She extended her earlobes to poke Arie lightly on her cheek. She turned her head to see her Aunt Kyo glaring down at her. That's when the punishment came. Ow, ah, ow. Arie squeaked in pain as she was repeatedly jabbed by Kyoka's ears. Don't you ever put me through that again, you hear me? Kyoka exclaimed while unrelenting in her assault on the snowball. Jiro, what are you doing? Izuku shouted, trying to defend his snowball. Kyoka, stop it, Momo shouted. The punk rocker retracted her ear jacks and aimed them at their new targets. Oh, don't worry, there's plenty left for you too. And it was Momo and Izuku's turn to get tuned by Kyoka's vengeful ears. Shoto was a few feet away, writing an obituary for the beloved family. What did we do to deserve this? Ow, Izuku screamed. Kyoka finally let up on her assault to glare down at all three of them. You, she pointed a jack at Momo. Screamed so loud, that she pointed her other one at Arie. And I heard you from the damn ship. After that, Arie lost it and fought tooth and nail to get to you too. And to make it worse, she used her quirk to go run for infinity. Izuku and Momo were stunned by the part about Arie using her power in Kyoka's tangent. Arie, is that true? The child looked down in shame. She hummed. 1. And my voice actually reached you that far across the ocean? Momo asked in utter surprise. Yes, which is something I'm mad at him for. Jiro stabbed Izuku again to punctuate her sentence. Why me? The next time you make your wife scream, make sure it's at night. The couple turned cherry red by Kyoka's wording. That isn't. Momo stuttered. Well, technically, I did make her scream, but not the way you're thinking. Izuku argued. We'll talk about that later. Maybe. We haven't even gotten to why my arms are noodles. I had to hold Arie to keep her from running through a wall, which is difficult when she's hell-bent on seeing you too. I didn't even get infinite stamina. Arie was hiding her face in Izuku's chest. This was the first time her auntie was really mad at her. She didn't like it. She felt bad. Izuku placed a hand on her head and stroked. Arie, I get that you were excited to see us, so were we. But you put Aunt Kyoka under a lot of stress. That's not good. Arie pulled herself off of Izuku's chest and looked up at Kyoka. She wiped a tear away and said, I'm sorry I caused you trouble, Auntie. Kyoka's glare almost entirely subsided when she heard that. She lifted her shaky arm and rested her hand on Arie's head. Just don't do it again, got it? Arie nodded. Kyoka kneeled down and used her jacks to pull Arie into her chest. Damn unicorn, making it impossible to stay mad at her, she grumbled in her head. After that, Shoto and Arie helped bring the luggage. She only carried a small toiletry bag onto the ship while the crew cleaned the house of unused supplies. When they were back on the boat, Kyoka tapped Izuku's shoulder. So are we not going to talk about Arie running across fucking water? She whispered. It's weird, her power is rewind, but she did something completely impossible without a speed-type quirk. Izuku whispered back with a hand on his chin. He looked up and saw the aforementioned child in her mother's arms with tired eyes. Arie's quirk is a delicate subject for her. As long as she's calm, we don't have to worry. We can talk in the morning. Are you all right, sweetie? Momo asked Arie, who was rubbing her eyes. Just tired, mama. Momo cocked an eyebrow. How can she be tired if she kept rewinding herself to have endless stamina? It must be due in part to that random burst of speed. Arie, what did you do? Momo put that topic on the shelf as they joined Izuku, Kyoka and Shoto. I'm afraid to ask, but how did visiting your mother go, Todoroki? Oh, well. Todoroki household. Hey, are you two ready yet? Shoto asked from the door. Yeah, coming. Natsuo answered. Fuyumi soon followed. Anything we need to know before we meet our niece? It feels weird saying that. Fuyumi said. Yeah, I agree. You should be saying daughter. Natsuo teased. 1. As long as you're friendly, you'll be fine. Let's go pick her up. Shoto said as he got in the car. Fuyumi got seated behind the steering wheel. Don't let him get in your head, Fuyumi. She's just one little girl, you've handled lots of little kids. Natsuo called shotgun. Now that sounds weird out of context. He commented on Fuyumi's thoughts slipping out. You're sitting in the back. Shoto, you get shotgun. Okay. The bicolor teen said. Why? Natsu cried in outrage. Because I need to focus on driving. You can get to know Arie when we pick her up. Yaoyorozu Midoriya Mansion. Arie was waiting in front of the door for her caretakers for the day. Inko was on a couch near her, watching as she stared at the large door, still as a statue. Arie, are you hungry? She didn't give a verbal answer, and just shook her head. Hello. Shoto's voice came over from the doorbell, making Arie jump in surprise. Inko went to the intercom. Hello Todoroki. Good morning, Mrs. Midoriya. Is Arie there? Oh yes, and she's very excited. Inko looked back at where Arie was sitting, only to see her gone with the door slightly open. A little too excited. Arie was already at the entrance before Shoto even disconnected the call. Hello uncle, she said with a smile. Shoto bent down. Hello Arie. The girl finally noticed the two older ones behind Shoto, smiling at her. She gripped his shoulder and looked at them. Arie, you remember my brother and sister, right? Arie nodded. Fuyumi walked forward first. Hi there, it's nice to see you again, Arie. I'm Fuyumi, I'm your uncle's older sister. This is Natsu, he's younger than me, but older than Shoto. Hey, what's up, Squirt? Natsu waved. Arie waved. Hi, Aunt Yumi, Uncle Natsu. Both Natsuo and Fuyumi went wide-eyed at what Arie called them. According to Shoto, that's her way of saying she likes them deeply. Should we get going? Shoto asked. Is your mama nice? Arie asked, to which Shoto smiled. The nicest. He got in the backseat with Arie to keep her comfortable with people she still isn't used to. I like this kid, Natsu said. The hospital. I hate that kid, Natsu grumbled after getting his ass handed to him in a video game by a 5-year-old. Fuyumi chuckled lightly. Oh well, I guess you definitely don't want me getting with Mido and bringing Arie into the family. Natsuo snapped his head at her. Au contraire, Big sister. I actually want you to get with Mido even more now. Fuyumi looked dumbstruck at him. What? Why? Because then, I'd get to really be her uncle, and I'd get to impose some strict rules on her. Fuyumi pinched the bridge of her nose. What rules? Don't shatter your uncle's self-worth. Maybe. 1. Rei's room. Rei Todoroki had a soft smile as she held multiple envelopes from Izuku. She opened the first one, which was a letter from the green-haired boy. Dear Ms. Rei, I hope this letter finds you well. I'm a married man, now. Hee. I don't know if I'll ever get used to saying that. It was easily the most terrifying, nerve-wracking day of my life. And also the best and most beautiful. Your sons and daughter were there. Shoto made an awesome bodyguard. He even had sidekicks. It would have been really nice if you were there, too. It's okay, I'm not bitter. Anyway, I'm about to leave for my honeymoon with my wife. Not used to saying that either. Take care. Sincerely, Izuku Midorizu. P.S. I sent pictures of the day, too. Rei smiled warmly, happy that Izuku's big day was truly special to him. It made her happy that he was thinking about her, even during his wedding day. Rei put the letter down and looked into the next envelope. She pulled out a picture of Izuku and his wife at the altar. Wow, such a beautiful bride, Rei thought. The next was a family photo with the parents of the couple and their daughter. That must be their daughter. She's so cute, and looks really happy. The final picture was one of the couple with their closest friends. Who is this lovely young lady next to Shoto? Rei's final envelope was red. It wasn't from Izuku or her children. It was from Endeavor. For the first time in years, he wrote to her. Rei didn't know what to think about it. He already had his perfect child, what more does he want from her? Knock knock. The sound of a knock against the door pulled the white-haired lady away from her thoughts. She hid the letter from Endeavor under her pillow, and raised her voice. Come in. Shoto opened the door and walked in with a new guest on his back. Hi Mom. He greeted. Fuyumi and Natsuo followed. Rei got up to happily welcome her kids in, and the one holding on to her youngest. You must be Arie, it's nice to meet you. She greeted kindly. Hi, Arie said nervously. The four of them all got seated and talked. How was the wedding? Rei asked. I got pictures and a letter, but not the full story. Fuyumi rested a hand on her head. Beautiful, but insane. Not just because middle schoolers were married, but what came after. Fuyumi and Shoto informed Rei about the monster from hell known as Mitsuki Bakugo and Izuku's aunt, who nearly killed the newlyweds just after they were engaged. Scary auntie, Arie muttered. She really was. Shoto agreed. You made a beautiful flower girl, Arie. Rei commented. Arie smiled at her. It was small, but something. Thank you. The Todorokis and Arie enjoyed a meal paid for by Natsuo. Shoto gave him Endeavor's credit card to use. And that's how I almost died. Natsu finished. That ice sculpture was not a good idea. Shoto said. It couldn't have been that bad, son. Rei said. Fuyumi showed her a picture of Natsu's creation, and her eyes went wide as a blush spread across her cheeks. Okay, it was quite bad. Natsuo felt another blow to his pride. Papa makes really good food, Arie said while Shoto was showing a picture of Izuku at the grill making burgers. I wonder if he cooks as well as Fuyumi. Natsu asked with wiggling eyebrows. Natsu, don't you do this to me now. Arie then looked up at Fuyumi. Can you cook like Papa can? She almost sounded hopeful. Fuyumi rubbed the back of her head. Oh, I don't know. I'm probably not as good as your dad. That's a lie, because when he came over for lunch he said your cooking was delicious. Shoto said. Rei was surprised by that piece of information. Izuku came to the house. When? Shoto answered. Before he saved Arie. Fuyumi and Natsu insisted I invite him. Dad wasn't exactly welcoming. Rei looked down at her hands, and then at her pillow. So, how's your progress going, Mom? Natsuo asked, trying to lighten the mood. Very well. I've been able to get out of this room and interact with others more. Since the doctors were able to let all of you in, it speaks volumes how much things have improved. Rei gave them a sweet smile. Arie tugged at her pant leg to get her attention. Were you hurt, too? She asked. having no idea the beehive she stuck her little finger in. Rei's smile dropped. You might say that. Arie rested her head on Rei's lap, slightly surprising the older woman. It's scary when you're hurt, she said, getting empathetic with someone 40 years older than her. Rei stroked her head. Yes it is, but it's much easier when you have someone to help you. To remind you that you're not alone and you don't have to suffer. I'm sure your parents do that for you. Arie nodded on her thigh. As for me, I have my children and all the letters they write me. She gestured to the pile of red letters from her kids. See, can I write to you? Arie asked, to which Rei smiled. I'd like that very much. And she'll need someone to teach her. Natsuo looked at Fuyumi. Unfortunately, visiting hours were spent, and Rei's visitors had to leave. She gave goodbye hugs to everyone, including the Midorizu's daughter. When your parents get back, tell them I said hello. I will, Arie said as she climbed aboard Shoto's back. Bye mom. Bye granny. Everyone paused when Arie said that. Rei was especially shocked, but shrugged it off and smiled widely at the little girl and waved. Take care, little one. For once, Natsuo was dead silent with his jaw hanging open. He looked between his mother and the retreating unicorn's back. Hot damn, that was just brazen. Fuyumi pushed him out until he could walk on his own. Fuyumi, a moment please. Rei said it more like a demand than a request. Oh, sure. What's up, Mom? Rei looked into her daughter's eyes. Has your father said anything about me recently? Fuyumi was surprised by that question. Well, no I don't think so. Why do you ask? Rei held her wrist. He wrote a letter to me, but I haven't read it yet. Fuyumi was greatly taken aback. Dad wrote to you. What for? That's what I'm wondering. After 8 years, what reason could he have to reach out to me now? Fuyumi thought about it deeply. I don't think he's been taking reflection time. It clicked with her. What is it? Rei asked when Fuyumi's eyes reflected sudden realization with a hint of dread. You're not gonna like it. And so, Fuyumi explained to her mother that Endeavor drew up a quirk marriage between Shoto and Momo, and somehow he doesn't know the latter is already engaged. So now he has this whole delusion that there's going to be a wedding between her and Shoto. She also mentioned that Endeavor doesn't like Izuku. What? Rei asked. The kindness in her eyes was replaced by a cold, intimidating glare of a woman scorned. It honestly surprised Fuyumi that her timid mother could look so scary. That letter might be a wedding invitation. Has that man learned nothing? Rei asked. You should go. Your brothers and Arie are waiting. Fuyumi looked confused, but did as she was told. But what about the Midorizus? And Arie? Dad won't just let this slide. Rei nodded solemnly. Trust me, I know. We can at least hope he will come to his senses before he does something else he'll regret. Rei had almost no hope of that happening. She hugged Fuyumi goodbye, before reaching under her pillow for the red letter. Hello Rei. I know it's been a long time, but there's something you should know. Shoto is getting married to the exceptional daughter of the Yaoyorozu family. I simply wished to inform you that our grandchildren will be legendary. 2. Enji Todoroki. Rei squinted her eyes and crumpled the paper in her hands. Present. The air on the ship was thick after that, varying looks of either disgust or shame or resentment. He's still on this, huh? Izuku asked, to which Shoto nodded. I'm honestly surprised he still doesn't know about me and Momo's marital status. Momo glared at Shoto. Yes, surprising, indeed. Todoroki shrinked slightly under her gaze. I'm more surprised that asshole still calls himself a hero. Jiro remarked. Jiro. Language. Although, you aren't wrong. Momo chided. Kyoka gestured for her to look down at the passed-out unicorn in her arms. Let's get her to bed, Izuku said, picking up Arie's limp form. Before he walked off, Shoto tapped his shoulder. What happened before won't happen again. I promise. Izuku smiled at him. Thank you. It better not, Momo said before walking off with her husband. That just left Kyoka and Shoto on the main deck. Todoroki, your dad's a dick. Yeah, I know. Izuku and Momo's cabin. Momo was brushing her luxurious hair in front of a mirror while Izuku tucked Arie into bed. Is now a good time to talk about? Momo gestured to the worn-out child. Yeah, I'd say now is good. They recalled when Arie sped across the water and right through a solid metal shield. What in the world happened? According to Kyoka, she used rewind to have limitless stamina, but that shouldn't give her a boost of speed. Momo whispered. Izuku had his hand up to his chin. What she did was impossible without a quirk, and hers isn't suited to pull that off. But. Momo looked at him, urging him to go on. Her quirk is really unique, not inherited but a mutation. And quirks grow in strength and complexity with every generation. People have awakened new abilities during times of emotional crisis, and it takes a toll the first time. Momo's eyes went wide when she realized what he was getting at. You're suggesting Arie had a quirk awakening. At her age, it sounded ludicrous for a 5-year-old child to experience such a drastic change. Her quirk is connected to time, and we've only ever seen her rewind living things. What if she did the opposite on herself? Sort of like Shoto. Fast forward, Momo was having a hard time believing this was the case. But she couldn't think of anything else that made a lick of sense. But, Izuku, the kind of emotional stress that would cause such a development. Izuku rubbed the back of his head. She didn't grow up under normal circumstances. Chisaki used to tear her down and rebuild her with his quirk. Physicality aside, there's also her trauma and attachment. We don't know how different she is from what her normal, untouched self would be. The young parents looked at their sleeping girl with mixed emotions. Worry, curiosity, love, care. Anyway, all I've got are theories. We should really think about getting her to a doctor, Izuku said before climbing into bed. Momo got in as well, and Arie was sandwiched between them again. So I guess this means Arie will need you by her side even more now. Izuku knew what she was getting at, but didn't reply. He simply pulled Momo in closer and held his precious girls tight. It doesn't get better than this. Good night, wifey. Momo smiled and kissed his forehead. Good night, love. Faster. That was the only thing on her mind. When she tried to escape overhaul, she kept telling herself to run faster, praying she would reach someone that could help her. Then there was her parents' honeymoon. The longest period of time she spent away from them. Every day and night she wished time would move faster so she could see her favorite people again. Then, her deep-felt wish and unique quirk conjured a miracle. SS Midorizu. Morning. In the cabin of the Midorizu family, a snow-haired angel was whimpering and shaking in her sleep. It awoke her parents holding her tightly. Still groggy, Momo patted Arie's head. It's okay, sweetie. Papa and I are here. You're not alone anymore. Arie woke up, but didn't open her eyes. Mama. My head hurts. She whimpered. Izuku opened his eyes and looked down. Do you have a headache or? He trailed off when he finally got a good look at his daughter. What the hell? Kyoka asked. She was standing right beside the family bed in a long night shirt. She, like the couple, had been stunned nearly silent by this sudden development. Arie now had a long blue horn on the left side of her head. Their unicorn grew a second horn. Arie. Izuku slowly reached for the new feature and gently grazed it with his fingertips. Arie shivered at the slightest of contact, and tears began to fill her eyes. Baby, you have a second horn. Momo exclaimed, now fully awake. It hurts. Arie cried. Izuku quickly and carefully wrapped Arie in her blue hoodie and held her close to him. What happened to her? Kyoka asked worriedly. Were you worried and came to check on her? Momo asked. Yeah, that's why. Kyoka said while hiding a fake pregnancy test behind her back. Suddenly, Shoto walked into the room. Izuku, I need to tell you something about Arie. He then saw everyone with worried looks and a blue double-horned burrito in Izuku's arms. But I guess it can wait. Why does Arie have 2 horns? I don't know, she just woke up like this. Izuku exclaimed. I'll inform my parents. As soon as we get back to land, we're taking her to a doctor. Momo went to go look for her phone. I'll call my sister, Shoto said. Why? Kyoka asked. She's dealt with disturbed children before. And she'll make a great first impression on Izuku and Momo. Izuku left the cabin with Arie to get her to a more quiet area to calm her down. He put her down on a sunbed and brought in a towel and pillow to keep her warm and comfortable. The cold saltwater air helped her relax while Izuku placed a hand on her tongue. He observed his daughter's condition. Flushed cheeks, established headache and watery eyes. It hurt him to see his little girl suffering. And her new horn. It was blue, thinner and taller than the stubby yellow horn on the right side of her head. It must be her new power. Rewind on the right and fast forward on the left. Holy crap, she's like Shoto now. Papa, Arie's strained voice pulled her out of his thoughts. Yes, Snowflake. Why do I have 2 horns now? I already didn't like the first one. Izuku rubbed her forehead. Your quirk is changing. It's usually for people older than you, but sometimes it happens when you feel strong emotions. Don't worry, we'll get you to a hospital to get you checked out. Arie nodded. Izuku stayed beside her until Momo and the others were ready to join. Todoroki household, I fucked up. You're just now realizing that. Natsuo and Fuyumi exchanged. Endeavor was in the living room making arrangements for the wedding between Momo and Shoto. He was still totally convinced of the upcoming union between his masterpiece and the Yaoyorozu scion. It's not even funny at this point, it's just sad. What did you do now? Fuyumi asked. I helped him find venues and flowers, and turns out the ones I picked are all non-refundable. He's gonna be so pissed. Fuyumi closed her book and adjusted her glasses. Why would you pick those to begin with? Oh wait, let me guess, you didn't read ahead before clicking. Natsuo rubbed the back of his head and looked away. Sis, you have to help me. He clasped his hands together pleadingly. What do you expect me to do? Tell him the truth for you. Natsu looked at her like she'd gone insane. Fuck no, are you crazy? Help me flee the country, duh. Your short boyfriend has a yacht, you could make it work. Fuyumi got up to leave. Now I'm definitely not helping you. Aw come on. *VVVV. Fuyumi's phone vibrated on her bed. Natsu picked it up and saw it was a video call from Shoto. Wonder what he wants. He hit accept. Hey Shoto, how's the love boat? He was shown an unamused Shoto. Where's Fuyumi? He asked. Hello to you, too, dear little brother. Natsu waved sarcastically. Hello. Anyway, where's Fuyumi? Around. Why do you need her? Is it about your friend's kid? Yeah, and we have a situation. Rozu is calling her parents, and when we get back it's straight to the nearest hospital. Natsuo's eyes went wide as he put together the dots. Married couple, honeymoon, their kid, hospital, oh my god, he put them together horrifically bad. She's pregnant, Natsu shrieked. Shoto opened his mouth to shut that down, but then stopped to think. I didn't ask. Oh for fuck's sake. 1. Shoto's phone was grabbed and the screen now showed a pissed Kyoka glaring at Natsuo. Moron. Get your sister. Arie, who is not getting a little sibling, needs an adult. I am an adult, Natsuo claimed. Shoto came in from the corner of the screen. You're 17, not an adult, whatever. Natsuo took off to find Fuyumi. He found his big sister in the kitchen, drinking a bottle of water. For you. He gave her her phone and walked off. Wait, who is it? Fuyumi asked and was face to face with Momo. She nearly choked on her water. 1. Oh, hello, ma'am. No, that sounds weird. Mrs. Rozu. No, too casual. Sorry, Mrs. Midorizu. About that call yester. Forget about that right now, and just call me Momo. Momo cut through Fuyumi's nervous rambling. The spectacled woman never expected to be nervous around a polite girl 7 years younger than her. Miss Todoroki, my daughter is in a delicate state and Shoto says you have experience in that regard. You don't have to say yes, but it would certainly help Arie relax if you were there, too. Fuyumi's personal dilemma was put aside when she heard Arie was going through something. The traumatized child that calls her aunt is suffering. She took a deep breath to calm down and looked back at Momo with determined eyes. Okay, let me see her. And call me Fuyumi. Momo nodded and went straight to where her husband and daughter were. Midorizu. Momo had just left with Shoto's phone. And there goes my evidence. Shoto said. Evidence of what? That your brother's an idiot. Shoto shook his head. No, he provides us enough proof of that every day. I meant I think I found Arie's biological mom. Kyoka went wide-eyed at him. You fucking what? How? Where? Pull up the news on your phone. Kyoka did as he said and scrolled through the most recent headlines. There. Menace to time captured. Villainous with the quirk of rewinding time thwarted by unnamed, quirk erasing underground hero. Many believe that reckless use of this quirk causes the fabric of time to rupture, creating plot holes in writing. 1. An image of the villainess after her capture was uploaded. White hair, blue skin and purple eyes. Her quirk turns back time, but only 5 minutes. Shoto explained. Okay, the hair matches, and the quirk is similar, but not the skin or the eyes. Kyoka said. Plus, Momo said Arie's quirk is a mutation, not inherited from her parents. I don't see horns on that lady. Shoto frowned that his theory had some holes. Okay, maybe not her mom, but probably a relative. Kyoka shook her head and grabbed Shoto by the collar of his shirt. Her mom is Momo, her dad is the green bean, and we're her aunt and uncle. Now come on, Candy Cane, our niece needs us. Shoto let himself be dragged by her. She seemed not to be taking any nonsense when Arie is sad. A caring nature that makes him like her. Main deck. Izuku was still beside Arie, trying to help her get through this apparently painful quirk awakening. Her head was throbbing and her new horn started glowing weakly. Arie. Momo came and planted a kiss on her forehead. Mama. She weakly said. There's someone who wants to say hello to you. Momo held out Shoto's phone and Arie took it. She was met a gently smiling woman in glasses. Izuku was a little taken aback by who he saw. Aunt Yumi. Hi Arie. I heard you weren't feeling well, so I wanted to check on you. How are you doing, kiddo? Arie gestured to the newest aspect of her power. New horn. It hurts. I'm sorry to hear that. It'll get better soon, I'm sure. You'll get checked out by a doctor. Until then you've got great parents looking after you. And your uncle and auntie. Aunties. Arie corrected her. There's Auntie Kyo, and you. Fuyumi looked at her stunned, and remembered Izuku and Momo were surely listening. But she smiled and tucked a lock of white hair behind her ear. Yeah, and me. The next couple of minutes weren't so bad. Fuyumi suggested remembering good moments would make the current bad moment a little more bearable. They all swapped stories, had some laughs and made Arie smile. They continued it up until breakfast. Fuyumi continued chatting with them while cooking at home while those on the ship ate food provided by the ship's chef. No way, Jiro said. I'm telling you, he is that good. Momo argued. There's no way Green over here cooks better than your personal chefs. They went to school for that. Izuku rubbed the back of his head with a blush. I wouldn't say I'm that good. I can hardly measure up to my mom. Izuku, if that were true, I would have ascended to heaven the first time I tried to her cooking. Momo said. But who's better between you and my sister? Shoto asked while slurping his bowl of soba. Well, I like to think I'm adept in the kitchen. Unlike Mido, I didn't have mom to teach me. A sad truth. But you put in the time to learn. According to Natsu, you practiced cooking since you were 12 when our old housekeeper retired. No one asked you to, you just knew we needed that. Give yourself some credit, you've earned it. Shoto said. It made Fuyumi smile brightly and lightly tear up that her efforts were recognized and appreciated. You took up cooking to help your family, too? Momo asked, making Fuyumi look at her. Izuku wanted to learn cooking to help ease his mother. Started learning at 11. Izuku fiddled with his fingers, while Fuyumi locked her glossy gray eyes on him. Why yeah, my dad isn't. Well, he's a prick that walked when he was 4. Kyoka interjected. Kyoka. Momo chastised her. Well, that's not inaccurate. Izuku took a breath before continuing. My mom had a lot on her plate and I wanted to lighten the load. I asked her to teach me how to cook and had to do a lot of insisting since she didn't want me to worry. Izuku looked up from his fingers to a smiling Fuyumi. Great minds think alike, huh? Izuku smiled back at her. Hey, yeah. Momo was looking back and forth between her husband and his best friend's sister, not quite sure how she feels. 1. Clang. The sound of Arie's spoon hitting the floor snapped her out of it. Sorry, she said as she sat up from her sunbed. Izuku held out his hand to stop her. Arie, you shouldn't move around too much. I feel a little better, Arie said as she planted her feet on the ground. In that moment, Arie's new horn lit up with a bright blue aura. Though she didn't notice it, the ship suddenly sped up dramatically. The others fell out of their seats and food went flying. The wind made their faces almost turn inside out. It all came to an end when Arie picked up her spoon and her horn stopped glowing. She blinked as she felt her horn. It didn't hurt anymore. My horn doesn't hurt anymore. Papa, Mama, I'm okay. She turned around and saw the others on the floor with their food next to them. What just happened? All I saw was a blur and I heard things crash. Fuyumi said on the phone. Izuku stood up and saw that their dock was in sight. The voyage was supposed to take at least another few hours. Shoto held up his phone and Fuyumi was just as shocked. She sped stuff up again. Kyoka said breathlessly. Arie, who didn't even know what she did, was standing still, completely unharmed. Now her temporal quirk affects non-living things too. Arie finally looked out and saw why everyone was so shocked. Did my quirk do that? Everyone slowly nodded at her. So we're going to the hospital sooner? She asked. I'll inform my parents. Momo said. I'll be there to pick you all up. Fuyumi said as she threw her apron off and went to look for her car keys. Izuku reached to pick up Arie and hold her close. You really are something else, you know that. The future. We wake up to a beautiful morning in the Midorizu mansion. The palace-like structure was home to the head of Midorizu Industries, the #1 hero course student of UA. High, and the #1 hero in Japan. The patriarch of this high-achieving family walked out of the master bedroom in a sharp suit while holding a briefcase. These past 10 years, he had grown from a meek, frail, timid boy to a tall, gallant, confident man with the perfect amount of muscle. He made his way to the kitchen, where his favorite servant was preparing breakfast. As usual, he treated said servant with the respect and dignity he deserved. Hurry up with breakfast, you worthless slob. 5. The spiky blonde servant scrambled to finish cooking. It's almost ready, sir, he said as he finished a pristine bowl of katsudon and carried it to the breakfast table. His skinny arms shook with fear as he set it down. Is it edible this time? Why yes sir. The servant's red eyes displayed fear at the green-haired man. That fear grew when the women of the house joined the breakfast table. First came a white-haired teenage girl in a UA uniform, and a black-haired woman in a red hero suit and cape. Arie and Momo Midorizu, one considered the almighty princess of the hero course, and the other the jewel in the crown of hero society. Everything he saw himself becoming, not the underpaid, overworked servant that sleeps in a utility closet. 1. Good morning, you two are looking especially beautiful today. Izuku said as he hugged his wife and child. You as well, love. Momo said as she pecked his nose. She then glanced at her husband's favorite servant, which quickly turned into a glare. Why your meal is ready, madam. He trembled. Momo walked over to the breakfast table and gave herself a small spoonful of the well-prepared dish. Ah, that's atrocious. She immediately gagged and dropped her spoon. The servant's shoulders slacked as she picked up the bowl and held it in front of him. I wouldn't feed this to a stray dog. Unless that dog tried to serve me this. She then shoved the bowl in the servant's face, which made him fall to the ground. Can't you do anything right, Bakugo? Izuku started. Arie has her work study today, and how can she learn from the #1 hero if you try to pass slop as breakfast? Bakugo wiped the hot food off his face in uniform. I'm sorry, sir. Then the person he despised most walked up to him and pulled a piece of pork from his chest and ate it as if it was his pride. If meager work like this is the best you can do, it's no surprise you couldn't be a hero. Arie Midorizu, the godly powerful angel of her class. With her temporal powers, she can end any fight in an instant and undo any damage to civilians or comrades. Despite being terrifyingly powerful, she treats everyone around her with respect and kindness. Except for Bakugo, the person who made her father's life hell for years. The one person she sees as beneath her. But he has his uses as an excellent training dummy for her quirk. It was thanks to him that she mastered being able to take away someone's quirk. He's still holding his breath for the day he can create explosions again. Poor fool. The Midorizu family sat at the breakfast table with a different breakfast prepared by a different chef. They do this literally every day. Criticize Bakugo's cooking, throw it in his face and order another servant to cook, just to crush whatever ounce of pride remained in him. So, what's today's agenda? Izuku asked. I'm excited for my work study with Mama. I can't wait to learn from the #1 hero. Arie said enthusiastically. I'll teach you everything I know, honey. Also, when we suit up, we use our hero names. Understand, Reverie? Arie nodded. Yes, Kriti. Izuku smiled at his special ladies. He remembers being a boy looking up to All Might and dreaming of being the greatest hero. He could have never predicted he'd end up the proud husband of a hero of that stature, and the loving father of the one who would most likely succeed her. And he couldn't be more content. The Froppy Agency has been gathering heavy hitters to strike down an uprising of anti-heteromorphs. She informed me that Shoto and Earphone Jack will be in attendance. How does that sound for your first big mission? Arie smiled widely and her eyes were glowing with determination. Let's do it, Kriti. She exclaimed with a fist. Izuku got up and hugged his daughter. Be careful, both of you. We will, Papa, Arie said while hugging back. You don't have to worry, love. Anyway, what's on your itinerary? Izuku released their daughter and sat back in his seat. Pretty eventful. I'm being flown out to Island to meeting with Shield Tech. Melissa made a breakthrough, and knowing her, it's definitely worth my attention. Momo smiled with nostalgia, remembering their first trip to Island when Izuku began interning for her father. Please tell her I said hello. We will. Momo looked at him questioningly. Izuku smiled at her. I'm not going on that long plane ride alone. Just as he said that, a servant walked into the room holding a baby boy with mostly black hair and green tips and bright gray eyes. Kumo. Arie squealed as she opened her arms for her baby brother. How's my sidekick doing? The baby giggled and smoke came out of his mouth, making Arie choke slightly. That's some mean morning breath, Kumo. Arie transferred the baby into Momo's arms. Hello my sweetie. Did you sleep well? AHB, Bekfa. The child babbled. Yes, we're having breakfast. That's my smart boy, Izuku said proudly. Momo decided to give the 1-year-old his breakfast. She fished her huge left boob out of her costume and brought Kumo to suckle on the nipple. Motherhood had treated Momo very well, giving her an hourglass figure even models envy. F-cup mommy milkies, childbearing hips, slim waist and a firm yet bubbly rear. And very healthy milk stored in said milkers. 1. When her son had his fill of breast milk and detached from the boob, he began spitting up a little. Momo put his little head on her shoulder and began patting. Burp. A wave of flames shot right out of his mouth, and he giggled wildly. You're a scarily early bloomer, you know that, mister. Momo tapped his nose with her finger, and he stuck his tongue out at her. Izuku picked up his son and rocked him in his arms. Hey, it could be worse. His fire breath could have been strong enough to make him spit lava. At least he almost never burns things accidentally. Bakugo's singed uniform would beg to differ. When the Midorizus discovered Kumo inherited his quirk from his grandfather, Momo worried about Izuku's relationship with their first biological child. He had the quirk of the man that abandoned Izuku and Inko when they needed him. Before meeting Sakusei, Izuku hardly remembers having a father. Someone to teach him, guide him, encourage him. But, evidently Momo's fears were for nothing. This is Izuku we're talking about. He'd be the last person to take out his own pain on someone who did nothing wrong. Least of all, his son. After breakfast, the family got their things together and prepared to leave. Arie, I'm assigning you a sidekick to assist you. Arie's eyes went slightly dull at that. Really, I thought I'd be with you, but okay. I promise I'll get along with them and listen. Izuku tapped her shoulder. She means she'll be lending you one of her sidekicks when she can't join you in the field. Arie's eyes sparkled at that. Oh whoa, I get my first sidekick. I'll do my best with them. Izuku leaned down and whispered into her ear. It's Awase. Arie's eyes went from bright and warm to cold and dead. He's cleaning my room and handling my schoolwork. She deadpanned. Momo patted Arie's head. You're already learning, Snowball. Part of being a good leader is giving people fitting roles. Your papa knows a thing or two about that. Momo smiled as she remembered her 20th birthday gift from Izuku. He convinced Sakusei to hire their idiot middle school friends, Jiga, Akarui, Fingers and Long Neck, just before he retired, leading them to believe they'd have high rank in a global company. The look of horror on their faces as the boss handed everything to Izuku, and his wife was on stage with him during his acceptance speech. They only stayed because they didn't have the credentials to go anywhere else. It's a shame, they should have treated the nerds better. The family stopped in front of two separate cars, one to take Izuku and Kumo to the airport, and one to take Arie and Momo to her agency. Well, this is where we part ways, Izuku began getting emotional. You two do your best, and kick butt. He was trying to hold it in, but he wasn't doing too well. And Kumo, with his lips quivering, acted as a mirror for his true emotions. Arie and Momo sighed and hugged their respective crybabies. Why you're taking my little G girl to war? Izuku cried in Momo's shoulder. The Midorizu matriarch ran her hand in circles on his back. Zuzu. She is more than ready to handle it. You know better than anyone how strong and smart she is. Not to mention, she'll have me, and Tsuyu, and Kyoka and Shoto. Izuku dried his eyes and looked at the brave, powerful young woman his little Arie had become. Listen to Mama, Papa. I've been working my butt off, so I promise I'll come home to you. Kumo was holding on to her, rubbing his cheek against hers. Both of you. Momo pecked him on the cheek. We promise, love. After all, we're top-ranked pros for a reason. Izuku chuckled and wiped a stray tear. Yeah, UA sure trained you well. Momo and Arie shook their heads. It's because of you, Izuku, the raven-haired woman began. All the research you did into preparing us for UA, even after you gave us invaluable insight the school didn't. We're not just the best heroes in Japan, but also the best we can be. We all owe that to you. Arie put her hand on his arm and looked up at him with loving eyes. You do more for us than the school, Papa. You're the best dad and teacher. And the hero of heroes. Izuku was enveloped in a hug by his family, the most wonderful things he could ever call his. He cried softly as he hugged them back. I love you guys so much. After that emotional morning, it was really time for them to part. Arie and Momo got in their car first. If anyone gives you looks, I know the formula for tear gas, sweetheart. Momo cut him off. I was going to say send them to me, but I guess we can play it nice. And Arie, I've been practicing the shoulder flip you taught me, Papa. Bakugo's a great sparring partner. Bakugo now has trauma from Arie shrinking him down to her size and practicing martial arts on him. I was going to say to age them to a toddler, but I guess we're playing nice these days. Izuku received a chop over the head for that from Momo. Bye Papa, bye Kumo, love you. Arie waved. Bye sweetie, don't murder any villains, unless, you know. Momo rolled up the window. Bye honey. Their car took off, and Momo sighed. Which is scarier, protective papa mode or protective husband mode? Arie asked. How about both? Momo answered. Meanwhile, Kumo was closing his hand into a fist and opening it as his way of waving. Well, guess it's just you and me now, buddy. Duh, Kumo said while grabbing his father's collar. Izuku smiled and stepped into the car. I've got the best life ever. As he was driven off, he didn't notice the hollow red eyes watching him from the large doors with a broken expression on his face. It should have been me, he muttered to himself. I should have been the #1 hero. I should be the richest man in the world. And yet, he thought back to his first year at UA, his high prospects. Then everything fell to crap when those extras sauntered in. There were 4 but the only ones he saw as worth remembering were the icy hot bastard and the 3D printer. Before he knew it, he wasn't even in the top 5, not academically or heroically. And it was extra humiliating due to him constantly making it a point to be #1. Whether it was losing their first training battle to Shoto or Momo taking first place in their first-year sports festival, his ego slowly began to deteriorate. No, that's not the case. Everything started going awry when she entered the picture. It was thanks to her that the worthless Deku became delusional enough to fight back, try to make something of himself. And now, he's living the nightmare he tried to prevent when they were kids. Izuku's worth completely eclipsed Bakugo's, and now they've completely swapped roles. They're both quirkless, but one is treated like dirt while the other is on a higher pedestal than most heroes. It wasn't supposed to be like this. The present. Oh fuck, oh that was so scary. Oh what a fucking nightmare. Shit, was that a nightmare or a vision? Oh shit, oh fuck. Katsuki woke up sweaty and heavy breathing from what he described as a horrific nightmare. Dude, are you awake? We just came up with a great plan to get back at Deku. Wake up from one nightmare to find your life is a nightmare. Katsuki could only bang his head against the brick wall of his holding cell, which was in the middle of his two lackeys' cells. These idiots are gonna get me killed. Okay, so listen, what happened at the beach, it was a fluke. Fingers claimed, making Katsuki bang his head against the wall again. Long neck continued, yeah, he only kinda, sorta won by the skin of his teeth. Man, that's a weird expression, who came up with that? Anyway, he only won because of that icy hot bastard doing his dirty work. Shoto wasn't the one wailing on Katsuki after he barked about hurting Izuku's kid and wife. Katsuki hit his head on the wall again. Please let me wake up from this nightmare, too. So what we need to do is, bang, 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 3 more impacts to his cranium. Finally, his extras got annoyed enough to ask, how long are you going to keep doing that? Until I get a fucking concussion, or you shitheads take the hint and stop talking. Whichever comes first. Fingers and long neck were taken aback by how low Katsuki's voice was. Unless you have a death wish, stay away from Deku. Maybe Katsuki did give himself a concussion. Either that or Deku knocked some sense into him. That fight, Katsuki began through gritted teeth. He predicted my attacks, read my pattern, made countering me look like a piece of cake. And he may have had the son of fucking Endeavor with him, but he was just playing support. I lost, mostly to Deku. Even if I wanted to settle the score, did you forget about these damn cuffs? When fighting Quirkless, I can't beat him. 1. Fingers and long neck were in utter disbelief of what they were hearing. Katsuki Bakugo, admitting defeat. To Deku, who could have ever predicted? Dude, don't be crazy. It's fucking Deku we're talking about. He won't have Two-Face around constantly. And when we get back to school, it'll be like none of this ever happened. There's a difference between being hopeful and delusional. Katsuki said, I get the feeling that crappy school will be even crappier, which is why I'm not going back. Deku's bitch probably knows everything by now. And, like the meddling ditz she is, she'd probably pay for new rules. We can't lay a finger on him. Now his followers were confused. Dude, you're overthinking this. She doesn't know Deku won, by a hair. And when she saw him bloody and bruised like a loser, she definitely left him. They're fucking married, ya dumb bastard. Katsuki snapped. His lackeys completely clamped up at that. This isn't a nightmare, it's fucking reality. Deku's married into the most powerful family in the fucking country. He wore a wedding ring at the beach, and he even had the balls to invite my folks to his big day. So now, that bastard has enough money and power to own, like, half the country. Don't you get it? Harming him would be like attacking a prince. He's untouchable. Katsuki clenched his fist so hard, it bled. So what now? Fuck if I know. What I'll do. Stay the hell away from those bastards. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Now we will see you in the next video.